So, nice to somewhat formally meet you. I guess this is really how people meet these days, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this is the new town squares.
The para relationship haven.
Yeah.
It's a damn shame. I was actually talking to a friend of mine, and I'm gonna lay some stuff out on this soon. But it's just like this world that we're living in, man. What timeline are we living in? I just don't get it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's been a lot of
Dude, between I don't even know what money is anymore. What are we doing? Bitcoin? I don't know. Like it's everywhere, man.
yeah, I just I do a lot of history research, so I've been reading about China in the 200 AD and
Where does that put you at 200s? What is that?
200, that's the you ever play
Yellow?
Dynasty Warriors?
Yellow? Is that yellow? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Dynasty Warriors, that's the time period is Dynasty Warrior time period and
That
it's
that seemed
crazy.
more like feudal, and feudal I thought was like 1500s or something.
No, I think you're thinking Japan and
This
China.
is I am thinking Japan, but isn't that not
Yeah.
is that not the same time period?
Nah, in China, it was the fall of the Han Dynasty,
Or the
and
Han fell?
I just went through 94 years of studying that, and
Wow.
it's crazy. It basically amounted to who lived the longest. That was who won.
What do you mean?
This one guy would take over, but then he'd be doing good, and then he would die, and then somebody else would take over, and it would just splinter off. And so it's basically who lived the longest, and then
Was this like because I know they had different periods. They have the Warring States period, they have the Yellow, they have the Han, they got all these different things. I don't know where that fits in, but
yeah, I think you think of the Yellow Turban, which is an uprising that happened
okay.
right at the end of the Han Dynasty. It's
I was
kind of what
close. I knew
set
it.
in motion.
What followed the Han? What was that?
The Han got followed by what would eventually be the Jin Dynasty for 50 years, and I don't know what happens after that because I haven't made it that far.
50
But
years?
they were only 50 years.
They had
Yeah,
a
and it
short
took
run.
almost 90 years for the Jin Dynasty to solidify, to conquer all of China. That's
Jesus
why
Christ.
they had three kingdoms at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and then bringing it back to today, it's like yeah, I guess today's a thing, but you think about time periods back then, it's like you think about Rome, you think about the Aztecs, you think about all these different epochs in human history, and you're like, yeah, we're just another wheel in the cog.
I bet it's humbling.
It's kind of scary, AI threw me for a loop for a long time.
What do you mean? Oh, the concept of AI?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, when we first started using AI, the very first thing I did was try to play D&D with it, and it played D&D better than I did. And I was like,
At first. That's
Yeah, and
crazy.
and and that was unpaid, and I think that was 3.5, ChatGPT 3.5.
That was
We're
crazy.
on 5 now, and I'm
Well, I
like,
tell people with all this stuff too, whatever tech we have right now is the shittiest version we'll ever have.
right, absolutely. Yeah, like when people complain about AI, I'm like, this is the bottom, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This is the first cars that rolled off the market, right?
Yeah, this is
Like
the T
compare them
model or
today.
whatever.
Yeah, compare them today. I got a shitty Dodge Dart.
Not
I'll
well, not
blow
having
that T
Tesla and
model.
shit, right?
Yeah, I'll blow that T model out the woodworks. Like, let's go.
Oh my god, dude.
Race me.
This has been on my mind the past probably 3 or 4 days heavy. It's just like, what are we doing as a damn I don't even know. I don't know. I don't know. It makes you wonder what the truth is, huh?
Yeah, it do.
I don't even know what the truth is. So you hit me with a good line the other day about kind of the scientific approach to truth, right? It's kind of I think the angle we were hitting it from.
Yeah, so
So lay that on me how you laid that on me similar because you messed my head up for a little bit because typically I think people think of science, they think that science is in pursuit of the truth.
it is, but in a backwards way.
Right. So there's some caveats to it that I don't think people think about a lot.
So when we when we think about truth, one of the things that gets overlooked is there's different levels of truth, right?
Sure.
So
Sure.
if I say, is it true that we're talking right now?
Right.
Sure. We
Right.
can see that, we can verify that. Other people can be watching this and go, yeah, it's true that they're talking. Like we can, but maybe those other people are like, nah, it's AI. I mean, I probably look like an AI motherfucker. They're probably like, maybe he's AI, he's not real. And so then, truth gets it gets kind of convoluted. There's also like empirical truths. There are truths that without being able to know how you know. For instance, you know that you can imagine things, but I don't know that. I can't prove that you can have an imagination,
Yeah, you
but I
can.
know that you do have one, right? So these are
Right.
truths that we hold and we operate under, but we don't necessarily have a way of like proving them, other than the fact, well, I have one, he must have one,
Right, right,
but
right.
then none of us can prove that we
So I'm a
actually have this
person because
thing.
they're a person, so we must have similar person stuff, right?
Yeah, and if you really want to go down that rabbit hole, Descartes couldn't figure out if he was real or not. He
Well,
Descartes
that's
was
kinda why he had to end up where he did. He said, "I think, therefore I am."
that's right. So
He's like, "This is the
that
only
like
thing that I can actually prove."
right. He's like this. I mean, this is it. This is the baseline here, and I don't know how everything stacks up from there.
Hmm.
So with science, there's a couple of different ways we use science, and there's a couple of different ways we go about science. In terms of the scientific methods, well, the first thing that you would do is you would ask a question. Why is the sky blue?
Right.
That's a simple question to ask. The next thing you would do is you would gather info, you would research it. You would see, does somebody else have an answer to that question? Or have they asked a similar question or given any type of like, here's why we think the sky is blue?
So the
Well, then,
ionosphere and the chloroform, or not the chloroform.
sure, whatever it is, maybe the gods, whatever,
Yeah,
whatever
right,
that
right.
answer, whatever we can come up with. Well, then the next thing we would do is like, well, okay, you're saying that the sky is blue because of the way the light hits it. Maybe we could test that. And then what we go about doing is trying to test that. We figure out, well, how do we test that? And then you conduct those tests. And if you can conduct those tests and you go, so the sky is blue because of X, and we've tried this and nothing has not proven that false, then you go, then it's true.
And then you get
With
into
the
the
understanding that the moment you discover something in the future that proves it false, you have to revise your theory. That's what a scientific theory is. It's not a guess. We use theory as a guess, but when a scientist
well, even scientific truth in this way is a scientific theory more than a truth, I guess.
some are science so we have scientific laws, right? Like 1 + 1 is 2.
Right.
So it's more of a mathematical law, but that's intrinsically understood by most people, right?
Mm,
1 hand plus 1 hand, 2 hands.
right.
Uh, and it doesn't matter what we call the 1 and the 2, right? Some people try to pick semantics apart with that, but it doesn't really matter what we call those.
Yeah, yeah. I've
The
seen a little
concept
bit of
still
that.
remains.
Yeah.
So we have those kind of truths, and then we have like the kind of intrinsic truth to you, like we just talked about, the idea of imaginations. And then
Intrinsic truths. That is, yeah.
so with theories is essentially just saying we came up with a question and we did some research and we put every known test we could possibly think of against this hypothesis, and it didn't prove the hypothesis false. So people think scientists are trying to prove their hypothesis true. They're actually trying to prove it false.
Break it. Hole poke it.
Yeah, if you can break science, that's what we're looking for. And
That's
actually,
a breakthrough, as you would say, right?
there's a very famous debate between Bill Nye the Science Guy and Kim Ham. Ken Ham is the Christian Creationist Museum guy. It's the guy who he's like one of the like lead dudes who came like I guess it's in like Tennessee. They think the Earth is 6,000 years old.
I've heard
Uh,
this.
yeah, so they had a big debate, and I think they had like two debates. And in one of the debates,
I couldn't wrap my head around it. I heard a little church going person tell me the earth was like 3,000 years old or something. I was like, what are you
yeah,
talking about?
there's a lot of people who think there's a lot of Christians who think that the Earth is only like 6,000, maybe 8,000 years old.
That's
And so
crazy.
Bill Nye was debating this guy, and one of the things that Bill Nye said, he's like, dude, if you can prove science wrong, we're not mad at you. Like a lot of people who are anti-science would be like, oh, science don't want you to prove them wrong. They're like, no, they want you to prove them wrong.
Well, a true scientific mind will, right? Because there's
Right,
a lot of people that
because
get entrenched into their thing, though, right?
sure, I think we talked about biases the other day.
Yeah,
Everyone has
yeah.
biases, which is part of why peer review is so important, is to try to weed out some of that biases.
Hole poke it. Yep.
Yeah.
That's hole poke it. You're right. The peer review, that's important.
Yeah. Uh, well, it's not just important just for biases. Like, what if I made a mistake? Just a simple mistake. And you're
A
also
lot
a
of times getting
scientist,
fresh eyes is a big thing too. Because
right?
I've noticed this is that somebody who's been working with something for 5 years, if you show it to somebody who's just they don't even have to be smart, they're just not retarded, and they come and look at it, and they look at it, and like they're just gonna see different things because they're not entrenched in the things that you've already
Yeah. Sometimes
weeded
somebody
through.
asking a question that seems asinine to most people, to the person really studying it, they're like, "That's actually a good question." And now I can think about it differently, which is a little bit what the linguistics thing I was talking about.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
that's where that plays in, and that's like where one of the bigger push to understanding that is the idea of, do bilingual people perceive the world in a way that's not necessarily better, but more complete, because they have access to two different forms of thought process.
Yeah, because we think in words, right? Once we know words, at least we think in words.
Perhaps, yeah.
You know, where do you stand? What do you think? You think we think in words, or you think something else is going on? Because I've always played it because you're talking to yourself right in your head. You're the narrator too, and it's like the narrator needs a script to use, right?
Well, this is again, this goes back to the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. It's called a hypothesis because science can't create a test to prove it, because I can't prove what's in your mind. So it doesn't, like, there's no, so part of the important part about creating a test to make a hypothesis a theory is the test has to be falsifiable.
Not proven true.
No, no. So falsifiable means that it has to be able to be proven false.
Well, the falsifiable seems to lean into what we call truth a lot of times, right?
Sort of, but I'll give you an example that'll be really easy to grasp, right? Science can't prove God because you can't make God falsifiable. There's no test you can make that if it's a pass or fail, you can go, see, no God, right? Because it
Yeah,
could just be that God's like, I don't want to talk to you. So
yeah. I've
there's
heard
no
this
test.
described before as like, so we're asking questions at a human level, but we're trying to answer them at like a God level.
Well, what I mean is, this is actually one of the things
Because there's
I
some
did.
questions that are unanswerable, really, you know?
Yes, but a lot of people would just say that they're unanswerable at our technological level. But what I mean is this: I tried to devise, let me come up with a test that will prove God one way or another. So I came up with like 4 or 5 different ideas, right? I was like, okay, if this happens, then God's real. But then here's the problem with the test. What if that doesn't happen? Does that mean God's not real? And every test I came up with when I asked that question, the answer was no, it doesn't mean that God's not real. So what I was doing was creating tests that weren't falsifiable.
It's
You have to
circumstantial?
be, I guess that's a layman way of saying it, but in order to create a test that's actually worth something, the test has to be pass means this, fail means this. If the test means fail doesn't mean anything, then it's not a good test, which is
Right,
bad
right.
science.
Okay.
So for a hypothesis to be able to be proven true, it has to be falsifiable, tested. And there's no way for me to create a test about the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis that would essentially be falsifiable. So since we can't test it, it just stays at the level of the hypothesis because we can't bring it into a theory.
So the hypothesis then sits in the camp of if this, then this, but both directions,
The hypothesis sits in the
right? Because
it sits in the camp
well,
of
if it's
this.
true, then it's if this, then this, and if it's false, then if this, then this, that way.
The hypothesis sits in this category. The question is, how does thought originate? And the hypothesis says, maybe by the language in which you're taught. And that's it. That's like the guess, because a hypothesis is essentially an educated guess to the
Right.
question,
There's no way to
and
really
that you're
prove that,
supposed
huh?
to test. But then since I can't test it, that's it. Like, that's all
So
we
if we
got.
get if we get Neuralink going, is that going to be able to answer that?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Depend
Well,
I
if it
haven't
does what it's supposed to do, I should say.
if it allows us to categorize thought, then yeah, probably. And that'll probably just open up a whole new
Crazy.
that'll open up a whole new field of anthropology and
Talking
linguistics.
about what timeline we're in.
Yeah, I mean, I told my teacher that I wanted to study the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, and he said, "Look, do what you want to do. You know, I don't want to tell somebody don't do the thing, but I'm going to tell you there's nothing there.
There's a
There's
road to
not."
nowhere.
Yeah, he's like, it's been beaten like a dead horse, and we can't go any further. So I mean, you're just going to be regurgitating what everybody else has already, said, and you're just going to pick your side, and then that's it. There's no way to make a breakthrough in that department. So
And now, what's his hypothesis again?
the hypothesis says you think in the language that you were taught, so essentially your worldview is shaped by the language you know. So an English speaker, by their language, will have a different worldview than a Spanish speaker.
But what happens? Because there was a time where we didn't know a language
When was that?
when we were small, real small, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we've had language, what scientists consider language, for over 2 million years.
Well, not as a grown person, but like a baby doesn't know language.
I mean,
But his thing
it's
is still thinking in some fashion. So it's like maybe
They're
what are
still
they thinking?
processing it. Yeah, they're still processing there. But more of their thinking is
Or what about the small kid who doesn't know language, but he's trying to pick up on the words you know? What is he using to learn that? Like, what is you know?
sure. So we'll tackle the small kid first. So a baby, for instance, gets hungry. It's instinctual to cry because it's hungry. It actually doesn't know why it's crying. It just knows to cry. It has signals being sent to its brain to say cry.
Hmm.
And the adult has to go, why are they crying? When I had my little babies, when they cried, I went through a checklist:
Yep.
diaper,
Yep.
hunger, want to be held, want to be burped, want to be rocked, want me to walk them around. There's a checklist that we just go through, and one of those things, or maybe a combination of those, will usually make them stop crying.
Right.
But it's not like they're thinking, "Man, I'm hungry. I need some milk." Nah, they're just their stomach hurts, and they cry out because it's
Instinctual
instinct.
behavior, I guess.
Yeah, it's like if I hit your knee with a little hammer, you kick.
Reflex.
You're not thinking about, "Oh, let me kick this dude in the head."
Right. Right.
You're just like, "Oh, it's instinct." Now, a kid who, I have a 6-year-old who's nonverbal, um, but he knows words. Kind of like,
So he can understand them. He just doesn't spit them out.
yes, it's some combination of that. I'll take it beyond a kid, right? A dog understands words. Tell a professionally trained dog to stop, he'll stop. He knows words.
Couple, right? Because I've always thought that, like, I
They
think they have
know
a limited
commands.
bank, but they really pick up on energy.
Dogs will say, "Come here, sit, roll over." They know words. Now, rather they know the words and they understand them the way we understand them, it's kind of
Right.
irrelevant.
Right.
It's
Right.
all just
Right.
codes, right? It's just me, using my mouth and this sound to produce something that the other person understands. It doesn't matter that rollover means rollover. We could call rollover desktop. If
Right.
desktop and he rolls over, it's
Well,
fine.
it's the
We
same as
we got
like
it.
dogs can understand you if you're speaking Spanish, English, French. I mean, they pick up eventually on what you're trying to do.
Yeah, and you pull a gun out on somebody, everybody understands that. Everybody's like, "Oh yeah, okay." It doesn't matter what language you're shouting at them, and they
Some
all
languages are
understand.
universal.
Yeah, some languages are universal.
Body
You know?
language. Body
Yeah.
language is.
Well, body language is a little bit beyond my scope of.
Well, I'm saying it's a universal thing, though.
Well, what I mean by it's beyond my scope is because a lot of it's subtext. A lot of it we know, but we don't know that we know. This is like another one of
I
those truths.
know. Isn't it the
There's a
trickiest shit ever?
There's a
My God.
really cool dude on YouTube who he does a lot of like charismatic talking, and
Mm.
like he'll teach, like, here's how
Vin?
body language works.
Come a
One
Vin?
of the
Vin?
I don't know. No, Ven's great. He's awesome, but it's not
Yeah,
it's some other guy, but this guy
I
was
guess.
he used it was a masterpiece to use. He used an interview with Russell Brand and some news anchors, and he just dissected the body language, and as he's saying it and you're seeing it, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. But like, I never thought of it before. We all do this. Like, we do this intrinsically, but nobody taught me to do this. We
I
just do
know
this.
I know the biggest one that's ever hit me was yeah, but basically the dog whisperer. So when I'm training my dog, I go through these things and he'll teach you like the little things to pick up on. And I feel so stupid afterwards. I was like, I should have known that. Obvious. Of course it is that thing, right? It's one of those. But dude, over and over, he would hit me with those over and over. I'm like, because I don't know. I did a little like, I got interested in dog training for a while or whatever. But it's like the things that you're looking for, it's right in front of your face.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is really simple. I think a lot of things humans, it's not complex for humans to grasp. Like once you receive the knowledge, you can go, oh yeah,
Yeah.
like 1 plus 1. You teach 1 plus 1 to a kid, and they're like, yeah, that makes sense. Complex things are more complicated, but to the person who studies complex ideas, it's less complicated to them because they're already geared towards it. You try to teach me calculus, and I'll be like, I don't know what you're talking about. But you try to teach somebody who loves math calculus, and they're like, I know exactly what you're talking about, even though it's more complex. It's just as complex
Well,
for them as it is for me.
they
They just have a
probably
mind
have
that already is geared towards understanding that.
Yeah, they probably have a lot more scaffolding in their mind for it.
I mean, there's probably some truth to that. It might just be the language they know.
Maybe, but like you said, like, because a lot of things end up in this, I don't know, I come back to Musashi in my head. You know Musashi? He's a Japanese samurai from like, I think
Okay.
around the 1500s, right? But his one of his biggest lines is, "When you know the way broadly, you see it in all things." So if you have a mind that's geared for like math and numbers and things, even if you don't know calculus, it's kind of relative to your brain already. And like, oh, well, look, that's kind of like this is, and then you kind of start piecing together something.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I mean, you see people who are naturally gifted with languages can pick up on languages a lot easier, and
Right. They
it's
have a brain that's geared for it almost.
yeah, they just learn. They just my Latin professor. He said he got into a master's degree program, and they asked him if he knew Latin. He's like, yeah. He's like, I didn't. He's like, so for the summer, I just picked up a Latin book and I just learned Latin. And I was like, what? You
Yeah.
just learn
There's
Latin over the
people like
summer?
that out
Like,
there.
okay, dude, flex more on us.
There's people out there like that. That's crazy. Hmm. Speaks to the power of the ability of humans, I guess. So what was it your kid not being nonverbal that kind of put you on the path of the language interest? I was talking the other day. It seemed like you were kind of headed there anyway.
Yeah, so I got into anthropology, and anthropology is the study of humans,
Right.
and we essentially anthropology studies every aspects of anything related to humans, which is essentially everything we know. I was like, wow, I was blown away by my very first. It was just an intro anthropology class. I was blown away by it, and I started getting into it. And there's four main branches of anthropology in America. They kind of separate it a little bit in Europe, a little differently. But we have cultural anthropology, physical anthropology, archaeology, and linguistics. And I have a documented learning disability towards learning a language. So I actually got to test out of language classes in college, which is great. I didn't have to learn a foreign language at all. And so what I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to take a linguistic anthropology course. I'm not gonna enjoy it. But I thought I'd be a culture anthropology. I'm like, that's my thing, studying different cultures. I like Asian cultures. I
Right,
like
right.
studying that kind of stuff. I'm like, that's me. And I took an Irish class, and my teacher was like, "How many of y'all have seen the movie Arrival?" And I don't know if
What
you've
movie?
seen it or not. The movie Arrival.
No.
I guarantee you'll watch it after I tell you some of the stuff. I think I was the only one who watched it. And she was like, "You've seen it? They talked about the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. You're going to love it." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Well, you're taking my linguistic class next semester. You're going to love it. We're going to talk about it." I'm like, "Oh, okay, whatever." And sure enough, I did. I loved it. I was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing. This is an amazing idea." And that's kind of what got me into doing linguistics. I don't do linguistics, but that's what got
Sounds like you
me like,
stumbled into it, kind of.
yeah, and Arrival, it's really funny because it's a science fiction movie and it mentions the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis one time, one line.
Okay, okay, okay. I've heard you say this probably a dozen times, and just for anybody that wants to look it up, how do you spell that?
Sapir is Saip, and then Whorf is Worf. Sapir-Whorf. Or wait, it's
Sapir.
Spir. Sapir. Sapir. And then Whorf. It's two different guys. They kind of like,
Okay, gotcha.
one kind of taught the other, and they kind of
Really?
carried the idea forward. So they just kind of, they actually didn't really advocate for what it is now, but because it got linked to them, they just call it the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis.
What was their angle originally?
I don't remember the exactness of their argument. It's like
Yeah.
it was different enough that they probably wouldn't agree with what we think of it now. And nowadays it's kind of been modernized into the phrase linguistic relativity. So if you look up linguistic relativity, all of this will pull up.
Yeah.
So in the movie, yeah, they mention it one time. Lo and behold, the entire movie is based around it. You just don't know it because they did such a great job of explaining the scientific thing to you. And it's not that important until you go look it up and then you realize like, oh, that's what they're trying to emphasize. That's interesting.
Hmm. 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 So, have you gotten any closer?
So the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, to nailing it.
Well, chewing on it, because I know you've been chewing on it.
I mean, there's arguments for both. I think.
What's the argument against? Like, if you're not learning or thinking in your own native language, what's the opposite?
So here's the like academic argument. There are two forms of there's the hard form and the soft form.
That's a
The
good
soft
one.
form says that language helps determine the way you think about the world. The hard form says that language literally determines how you think about the world. You can't think about the world outside of your language.
So, is this more like pre-cognitive and post-cognitive kind of thing?
No, one's more like you can't like the hard determinist would say that you're not capable of thinking outside of your language. Whereas the soft would say, of course you're capable, but you don't operate normally in that capacity. So normally you do structure your worldview around your language, but you're certainly capable of going beyond it.
So it's like a
Almost,
can't or don't.
yeah. So almost every academic linguistic or anthropologist lands on the soft. And only a
Just
few
don't.
people, yeah. So only a few people are like, yeah, it determines. And so it's really just what camp you're in. But most
So
people
it
are
seems
saying
like it.
this.
Seems like you're saying that you either can't think otherwise or you don't think otherwise.
Well, it's either you can't think otherwise or you can, but you don't normally operate that way. It's like you probably don't do math in your head at everything that you do, but you probably could. There's probably ways to think mathematically about everything in that you're doing. Like I
10
take a
steps to
skip
the
a cup.
door, 30 degrees of toad knob turn.
Yeah, there are probably so the way it would break down to then is that they would say that the hard
That's really
determinists.
micromanaging your whole world, though.
Yeah, so the hard determinists would say that if you only know the language of math, you can only think of the world in terms of math.
Is math is a language, I guess.
And so the soft determinists would say, no, if you only know language as math, then you mostly think of the world as in mathematical, but you don't have to. You could think of it in other things that you're not able to describe
Okay.
necessarily.
Well, in my head, I'm thinking language is words and stuff, right? Obviously. But you just kind of throw a wrench in that when you say that math is a language. How many languages in this way do you recognize, or do we have an
There are
idea
over 6,000 languages.
as far as like different context and inputs and understandings of things?
As far as languages that humans have spoken throughout human history that we
Well, we
know
were
of.
kind of pointing to math being a language, which I can kind of get it. But how many different shades of that are there? Like, there's like English language and there's math language. Like, how many other of those are there? Any ideas on that?
It'll really come down to how fine of a line you want to put for language.
I
Most
know. That's what I was kind of, yeah.
most that definition of language has changed in the last 50 years.
That makes sense too.
It used to be that any animal other than a human that would reach the level of competence. Let me say that differently. It used to be that any animal that would display language as it met the current definition, anthropologists would just change the definition so that it would exclude them. So the definition got changed more and more to only include humans Then we realized that and we said, well, that's not really the right way of how
All
we
right,
should
picking
define
and choosing.
words. Yeah, and so then we kind of settled on it, and now well, all sorts of animals have languages by our definition. I don't know what the remember the exactness of the definition for language, but
I can look it up real quick while we're talking. Might as well put some teeth to it, right? See what we got. Yeah, because once you start opening this thing up, it's like math is one. I guess science is one. Science is a really broad term, though.
yeah. All right. So the academic definition of language.
The principal method of human communication, consisting of words used in a structured and conventional way and conveyed by speech, writing, or gesture. That's true. Writing is a language. Yeah. Gesture, was that body language is a language? A system of communication used by a particular country or community. What's the language? Did you pull up anything different other than
Not
speech,
really.
writing, or gesture?
Is
It seems those would be the meta categories there: speech, writing, and gesture. But no, because like math is legit; it's its own thing.
oh, this is interesting. So the AI is saying that language is on an academic level, they only define it humans, but communication is defined more
Fair,
broader to
fair,
include
fair.
AI, animals, computers. And I'm like, oh, okay, so that's even changed since the like 10 years I've been out of school,
Because yeah,
if that's
communication.
right.
Yeah, that's the nonverbal thing too. Is communication. It's not exactly a language, but it is a style of communication, right?
Well, because it's depending on who's doing it, if it's done by a human, then, right? Because the definition of language for a human includes communication.
That's so weird. It's a fine line.
It is. I don't really like this. I'm gonna look more into this because I don't really like that they're separating it again. I see a academic reason to do so.
Well, the one I just looked up on Google is probably Oxford or whatever. They said speech, writing, and gesture.
Sure. Language is because of people like my son, academics might be forced to try to caveat it as only humans in order to for like insurance and stuff like that. I know it's been a
What
lot
a
of his
weird
therapy.
game.
Yeah, a lot of our therapists have told us like it's really weird the language we have to use with the insurance company. We'll say things that it's not that they're not true, they just sound a lot worse than they actually are, but it's the same thing we're saying to you guys, but to them it sounds way worse, and it's just the verbiage we use. And I'm like, I
That's so
mean, I don't care what
terrible.
you gotta call him, just get him
Well,
whatever he
because they're
needs.
playing with the words, man. It's just like when they changed the definition of pandemic so they could do what they needed to do.
Sure. Well, we change
Ugh,
words all the time to suit whatever needs we have.
that's
It's
terrible, though. That's like taking away from the point of having words in the first place.
to some degree, but only if you care about people who don't agree with you.
I just want the definition to be the definition.
Yeah.
That's all. I just want a standard. I don't care what the standard is. Can we just keep the fucking standard, whatever the hell it is?
Well, then that's funny too because you think about like Japan, right? Japan doesn't call itself Japan.
What do they call
They
themselves?
call themselves Nippon.
Really?
It's the island of Nippon or
Really?
Ippon, depending on I guess the dialect. But
That's
yeah,
true. What we
it's
call
not
them
it's
isn't
not
exactly
Japan.
what they
Yeah,
call
they're like
themselves.
we don't care what y'all like. They probably recognize that they're called that we call them Japan, but like I have no idea what the Russians call them.
Yeah.
Probably
It's
not
like, you call us
Japan.
Japan? Like, who cares?
Yeah, and it's like it only matters to the people who you're speaking to. And I
That's so
think that this is
relative. Yeah.
yeah, so words are relative only in that we try to understand what we mean when we say words. And I think this is actually the most important part about debates. If you go back to classical Greek debating, we start by defining what we mean when we say the word.
Define
And
your term.
this is crazy because I find that this pisses people off so much. They think you're playing word games. I'm like, no.
Semantics, they say, right?
Yeah, they're like, Samantha, you're just trying to play word game. I'm like, no, I'm trying to make sure that when I say the word and you say the word, we're talking about the same thing.
It's
Because if we're
important for a
not, we're gonna
baseline
get
of a
confused.
conversation.
Yeah. And the fact that the Greeks started with that, you didn't get further into you didn't even get to talk about what you thought about it until you could define tell me what you mean by justice. Okay, great. I don't mean that. I mean this. Okay, great. Okay, what's a middle ground for us? Okay, now let's go. That was the preliminary. And
God, getting
now it's
through all
like
those
offensive.
weeds, boy, man, I can only imagine. But they're smart on them. Good for them, because they fucking knew that how dicey things can get if you start with a bad foundation, right? That's kind of the gist.
Yeah, I mean, it really do matter what you mean when we say things. And I get into arguments over linguistics a lot because I won't budge. Like, I'm willing to accept the use of your words so long as you tell me what it means. But if you don't tell me what it means, I'm just going to default to my words.
Right,
And
right.
if you have a misconception of what I'm saying, I mean, we could solve it if you want to, but if you're gonna cry semantics, I'm just gonna keep plowing ahead with what I'm saying, and you're
Yeah.
just gonna have to pick up the pieces as we go.
Because they're I mean, there's typically a default until further notice.
Yeah, and I think a mistake that we make, which is this is a crazy mistake for Americans to make, right? I could see if like the French people make this mistake, or like a more homogenous country makes this mistake. But for Americans to assume that when we say a word, we all mean the same thing, it's like, are you kidding me? Like the
Why
whole I
specifically us? Why you say
the
that?
the whole idea about America is that we're all from different backgrounds and stuff. Why would we?
Hodgepodge.
Yeah, I would. How would? Why would you think that we would have the same words if we all have different cultures living together? The French
Well,
culture
because
is
we
pretty
had
much all
one
the.
dictionary, right, for the longest time.
We do have one dictionary, but then it's most people. We don't usually default to like what the actual word means, right? We do shorthands. We talked about theory earlier, right? Nobody uses theory the way a scientist uses the correct way. We all use theory to just mean a guess. Hey man, I got a theory about this.
Mm,
Well, you
mm,
don't according to science because you haven't tested anything. So,
shorthand.
but we shorthand it to, just our colloquialisms, our geographic makes different. Southern United States should have a wildly different use of words than the Northern United States or even the Western United States. We see
Yeah,
this with pop and soda.
yeah, yeah,
If
yeah.
we're going to talk about sodas, but your word for soda is pop, we're going to have a problem. So we're going to have to figure out what we mean when you have to know that when I say pop,
I'm
or
talking
when I
about
say
soda or
soda, you're
whatever.
talking about, yeah, you have to know that. Otherwise, we're going to get really confused. And I can't tell you how many arguments I've seen where it's like, if you guys just use the same words, y'all would be fine. Y'all would actually agree, but y'all think y'all are diametrically opposed, but what you're really just doing is using different words to mean the
Just
same thing.
talking past each other.
Not even talking past. You think what his word is saying is wrong, but it's only because he's calling it that and you're calling it something else. If y'all recognize that y'all were using the same word but differently, y'all would be fine. Y'all would be like, oh yeah, we're cool. I agree with you.
I had to do this again with insanity recently because it's just I don't know for whatever reason I ended up looking it up because how people talk about insanity is like repeating the same thing over and over, expecting
Yeah,
different results. That is not the definition. It's something like foolishness. It's kind of,
yeah.
but it's like you take these commonly held things, right? And it's like, oh, if you dive into actually what it is, it's not like what you might think.
And then words change over time. So this goes back to the linguistics part. So part of linguistic anthropology is trying to figure out like why and how do words change, right?
Well, as
So
English is like the culmination of all of it, isn't it?
well, so
Or at least modern English.
so like if you were to go back to the days of George Washington, you would understand him. It
It's
would
tough
be it
sometimes,
would
but
be
yeah.
really hard. You'd be like, I kind of don't know what the hell you're talking about. But if you would go back to King Henry, you'd be like, I literally, why are you speaking a different? I thought you spoke English.
Shakespeare,
Right. It doesn't sound the same, and
hard to follow.
words change drastically, and the evolution of words is a really interesting thing to follow. And part of what drives the evolution of words is just using them in common day speech.
Shorthand.
So okay becoming okay to being hey.
So
If
this
you
is
if you give me information, I say K. You know what I mean. But 500 years ago, they wouldn't know. They'd be like, what do you mean K? What's this K? Which is
sounds like
K?
the long form of like we start with Latin and we end up in English somewhere.
Yeah, and that's part of what I think Benjamin Wharf, I think was his name. He was actually an insurance man. So a lot of the 19th before 1950 American anthropologists, most of them weren't academic only. Most of them were, I'm rich and I have a job, or I'm just really, really rich. And I like the idea of anthropology, so I study whatever and then I write about it, right? That was like old school, academics back then.
That's doing what they
And
can, I guess, to add to
and
the
and Worf was an insurance guy, and he was studying the Hopi Native Americans. He was studying their language, and he
where are
was
they?
writing some stuff up, and he came across something that nobody else figured out. He figured out that there was a lot of fires happening in insurance claims in factory workers. And when he dove into it, this is what was causing a problem. There were barrels that would say empty, and people would smoke around the barrels and throw the cigarettes into the barrels because they're empty. But they didn't realize that empty didn't mean that it was empty of oil or whatever it was that they was. So it would actually ignite and catch on fire.
There's like a
But
certain grade.
yeah, it was let's see.
Empty meant a certain like grade of product or something.
Yeah,
That's
so
pretty twisted.
this should come up pretty quick. But what he
That's
realized is that it was a misconception of what they thought empty meant. So they were smoking nearby, and they would toss matches in. He was investigating a series of workplace accidents at a fuel storage facility. Workers saw barrels labeled empty gasoline drums, and they would assume, oh, that's what it was. They would assume that empty meant safe. It's safe to smoke around them because they're empty. They don't have
hmm
fuel in them. But what they
right.
didn't realize is that the vapors are still in there, and those are more flammable than the liquid gas. And so they would smoke, or they would throw their cigarettes in there, and they would explode. And then so War figured this out. He's like, oh, this is a linguistics thing. People are assuming that the word empty means safe, and it doesn't mean that. And so,
It means
no,
without fluid, basically, not without ignitable whatever.
right. Yeah, and so there are actually jobs that will not allow for ambiguity. So, for instance, air traffic controllers, and
Yeah,
airplane
that's a big
pilots,
one.
they do not have there's no like I think in their vocabulary. You can't
This
say
is the thing.
I think I'm good to go. You have to know you're good to go. You have to, and then you have to say specifically exactly what you're doing with no room for interpretation. Another good one that I saw was like if you work at a nuclear plant, you can't say I think it's good.
A what plant?
Like a nuclear power plant,
Nuclear.
if
Yeah,
I'm your
they will.
supervisor, yeah, if I'm your supervisor and I send you down to go check on something, you come back, I'm like, hey, is it good? You can't be like, I think so.
Yeah, there's no room for error.
Yeah, because what you think is good, what I think is good is different. So we realize this. So when I ask for, yeah, hey man, is it good? You will literally tell me this is a CTO level, this is that, this is that. You will tell me verbatim what it is. There's
Now,
no thought process in it. Here is the analytical information, and then I have that information, and now I do something with that information.
so this is tapping into what I was actually going to say at the beginning because this wrapped my freaking head up all day today because somebody hit me with it and I had to rethink everything because those people are talking in facts.
Yes.
They're not talking in what we would call truths, right? They're
Yeah.
talking in facts, which is very different than truths because I'm messing my own head up because I've been talking shit for years about this subjective truth thing, right? And now I'm having to reel my shit back because I'm like, but all truth is subjective because truth is what it means to you. The fact is the fact. This is the objective thing. And there's no such thing, as I've been digging, like, there's no such thing as an objective truth. An objective truth is simply a fact.
Well, truth has to be independent of what we think.
Well, that's is what I was digging. It said the fact is the undeniable truth, like the undeniable reality, they called it. And then the truth is like what that means to you. So because of said thing, then facts, right? And then you formulate kind of truths from facts. But facts themselves are the objective thing. Like you said, the pressure is at whatever, or like those people in those jobs, they talk in facts. That's all they're allowed to do because that mix up, it can be not good.
Rather than saying they talk in facts, what I think would be more accurate is that they leave out ambiguity.
By talking in facts, though, no?
by cutting out words that have more than one meaning. So for instance, if I say think it's good, or let me think of a better one. It seems good, you know? If you're like,
Mm,
"Hey, is the kitchen a mess?" I think so. That doesn't tell you anything. That tells you what maybe I think about it. Maybe if you know me well enough, you might know what level of mess or cleanliness I think the kitchen is, but it doesn't really give you any information. Now, just you and me talking as just regular people, that's fine because
the
nothing's
stakes are
codependent.
low.
Yeah, the stakes are low, exactly. But when the stakes are life and death, that's not good enough. When the stakes are life and death, you have to know, and everybody has to know the information as accurate as can be known.
A tank commander.
Right, exactly. Uh,
Yeah, that's a high stakes job, right?
yeah, I mean, the military, like, you ever told a sergeant, I think so? You know, if they ask you a question, you're like, well, I think this. And like, you think or you know? I don't give a damn what you think. Go find out. If you don't know, go find out. Cause I can't tell the commander I think. Like, that doesn't do anything for us. We have to know. And
Well,
so,
this is kind of the split in the fact thing. You know a fact, but the think will be the truth because it's like the relative nature of it.
but the fact can be wrong. That's the only pushback I would have.
How can a fact be wrong if it's objective? It is the thing. Like, what's the temperature? It's 60 degrees outside. That is the fact. The fact is that it's 60 degrees outside.
Here's how that could be wrong, right? If I say, "Hey man, what's the temperature outside?" And you're like, "I mean, it's 60 degrees." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." That's factual to you because the last time you went outside it was 60 degrees, but that could have been 2 hours ago. It could be 100 degrees outside now. So what you knew to be true might have shifted. What I mean when the facts can be wrong, I simply mean that the facts that you understood them when you received the facts could have changed. And
You
you
said,
might not know that they've changed. So you're giving me information that you think is absolutely true, but it shifted and you weren't aware of it shifting.
but this is the difference, right, between truth and fact. Like, is it 60 outside? Is that a fact? And we're like, well, I was, and there's your truth.
I mean, it was as factual as you knew it to be. It was as true as you knew it to be, and then it changed, and you didn't know it. So you gave me the information that you thought was the most accurate, but it actually turned out to be wrong. So whoever has the most accurate information, up to date information, as they would say in the military, is the one that you listen to. It's not simply who knew the facts, because always in motion is the present. So there is a language.
What
It's a
what about what about like objective past events? You would be telling facts from it and then inferring truths from it, right?
somewhat. So
Like, what time did he rob the store? 7:30. That is a fact, right? Because everybody can see it, video, whatever. Like, that's a fact. And we're like, well, then we think he went around back, and like, then you can kind of infer different truths based on the fact. But
you sure
they,
can. You can keep going. And then what will really throw a wrench in it is then when you find out, oh, that was actually somebody else. That wasn't our guy. That was another guy. Oh, okay. Then we dealt with the facts as they were developing or as we were learning about them because it's post hoc, it's after the fact, no pun intended. But then what it turned out was the premise itself was wrong. The premise was this is the guy. This guy went into the store. This guy robbed the store. This guy exited the store. We do everything according to those facts until we find out premise one is that's not the guy. It's actually that guy. And they look almost identical.
but that wouldn't be a fact then, right? If it's loose.
It's as factual as whoever gave the information. If somebody looks at you,
Well, that sounds like a truth because the fact is like objective in a way. No?
if somebody looks at you and you go into a store and then there's another guy who maybe looks almost exactly like you, almost exactly like you guys could pass for twins. But if you really stared at each other's faces, you could go, "Oh, here's the differences," right? So that same guy goes into the same store and one of y'all comes out with a shotgun. The person seeing all of this is just going to get the information as best they know. They're going to give the factual information. They're going to be like, "This is true. This is what I witnessed."
Well, it still sounds like opinion. It
It's not
because it
opinion.
either it is or it is not, right?
Well, it would
And
be
that's
fact as
kind
soon
of
as we move. If we remove one of y'all from the equation, it becomes fact because then they know
still
because
sounds
there's only one of you,
subjective.
so it has to be one. So it gets kind of trippy when we get into
The specificity of a fact?
Not the specificity, the
I don't even know
motions
if that's a
of
word, but it sounds
the
good.
motion is a fact. So, I mean, history gets changed all the time when
Yeah,
new information
I
comes
guess
out.
how could you draw on that to kinda contrast it, I guess? Mm. Hmm. Because as
Here's a
far as
go.
I could
Now,
tell.
here's a historical thing. This is real big right now, and I don't know much about it, but it'll at least demonstrate how history factuality will change. The Roman Catholic Pope during the time of World War II, right, was up and for the longest time, up until very recently, was considered basically a Nazi sympathizer. They said he allied with Hitler, have all these things. And now reports are coming out that maybe that's not true. Maybe what the information that got out made it seem that way, but now we have a little bit more. This is the claim. I don't know if it's true or not, but the claim
Mhm.
is actually he wasn't. He was actually opposed, vehemently opposed to the Nazi regime, and he actually stopped them every turn he could. Here's the new information that we got, right? So which information's right? Well, the only way you're going to figure it out to the best of your knowledge is to examine both lines of thought and then make a decision.
You're just
But
reasoning for thought.
it's a revision of history based on new information, supposedly new information. So as new information comes out, as people discover things, particularly about the past, we can go, oh, wait a minute. What we thought we knew wasn't right.
Yeah, the facts are weird for past especially.
But the
'Cause like
truth is what actually happened, and that doesn't matter anything. That has nothing to do with any of the facts that we have access to, because the facts that we have access to are literally what we have access to. And so what actually happened, and that's true. And it doesn't matter what we know about what happened or what we don't know and what conclusions we make about the information that's given to us. And that's where I think truth matters over anything that we try to ascribe to. We're only aiming at a truth. Whether or not we get there is a whole different ballgame. And the closest we can get to actual truth, this is as far as I can tell, the closest will ever derive to actual truth is can we predict off of it? Can
can
I make a prediction off of my information and it come to pass?
that seems like a mastery, doesn't it?
Sure. So if I pick up a pencil and I drop it, what do you think will happen to it?
Yeah, I assume it'll fall.
Right. And so I think it'll fall. Well, let's test it. It fell. All right, that's true.
Good
We
prediction.
made a prediction. We tested the prediction and the prediction worked. I mean, as far as I can tell, if you drop something, it falls. That's true. Because we can predict off of it. And not because it fell. That's not the thing that matters. The thing that matters is we were able to predict that it would fall, and then that came to pass. And I don't know about you, but I can't tell the future. So, not being able to tell the future, I was able to tell you what would happen before it happened based off past experience, based off my
Yeah,
knowledge, which
people
is
do this.
it
It's
would
the whole
fall.
Nostradamus thing, right? It's
Well,
kinda like
if it's
we're
real,
picking up on cycles and kinda forecasting them. They like, "I see this will happen again." That could be a thing.
accidentally being right, like, well, so yeah, so I could, day traders do this every day, right? They look at
Mm.
the stock market and they go, well, based off the technical analysis and the past experience that I know, I think the stock will go up or down. But as Warren Buffett said, don't nobody know where the stock market will go. We don't know if it'll go up, down, sideways, we don't know. But like we use past performance and we try to measure it. But the key difference between me dropping my pencil and the day trader is the day trader is making an educated guess and hoping that he's right. I'm not hoping that I'm right when I drop the pencil. I know I'm right.
You think you know that you're right, yeah.
I know that this pencil is going to hit the floor because of my information. I'm not guessing and hoping, like, I'm not shooting for the stars. And so, anytime science, or really anybody, it doesn't necessarily have to be science, anytime you can make a prediction and it come to pass and it can be a repeatable thing, that I think is as close to true as you're ever going to get for humans.
See, because this gets weird. Because my brain always wants to jump, like, okay, so it's true in on our planet given our physics. But is that same if you drop that pencil on the moon is the same thing gonna happen, right? So like, because because you could expand this forever seemingly, and nothing will be true. But there is a level of like we have to take what we have, and make a base of it, right?
So this teeters on the idea of like situational morality. I used to be a big proponent of, and I had a friend busted in one, like, this guy's really smart. And he said, bro, morality is this, if you think murder is the same, right? So murder is murder. I'm like, well, yeah, but like, but maybe in China they, maybe he's like, no, no, no. In all situations, in the exact same situation, murder should be murder. If you change it even by a little, it's not the exact same situation, and so it's different. And I'm like, oh, so in this case, you changed the situation. You changed it from the Earth to the Moon. But then I would say, can we make a prediction on what will happen? And then will it happen? If I go into space, if I'm in space, if I let go of my pen, I don't think it's gonna fall to the ground. And then we could just watch some videos of some astronauts and be like, oh look, our prediction came to true. They let go of their pencil and it floated. And
So when we
so
say these, should we say them truth based on our physics?
yes, because, and this is a really important part to this idea of theory, is the moment we find a place in the universe where I drop my pencil and it doesn't fall to the ground, we have to explain that. And one of three things will happen. The first is we can't explain it. And so then we don't know what to do with it. We don't know if that breaks everything, or we're just not sure. Or two, we can go, oh, well, it works because of this, right? So in space we go, oh, the reason it doesn't fall is because there's no gravity in space. It doesn't break the fundamental idea of gravity, right? It actually reinforces it. So we can have an explanation that actually reinforces the theory based on the new information that we got, even though it's broken in an area. Or it can go the opposite way. It could be the case that because the pencil will float in space, we go, oh, actually, this breaks our idea of gravitational force, and now we have to rewrite it. So either we don't know, it reinforces the theory, or we have to rewrite the theory. Those are the three explanations I could come up with if we find somewhere in the universe that the laws operate differently.
But it does challenge fact on every level.
How so?
Because what's a fact on Earth is not a fact on the moon, right?
But that's just like saying the sun is shining. That's true somewhere in the world. It's not true everywhere. It doesn't make the fact wrong. It makes the location very important,
Well, if you
which I would.
broaden out, I guess it could forever do that. But a specific fact should be objective,
What do you mean by objective?
undeniable reality.
It is undeniable reality. And in Japan right now, the sun is shining. That's undeniable reality. It is not shining for me. It doesn't mean that the sun's not. It is certainly shining, just not for me.
Yeah, it seems like one that kind of leans on the wordplay, though.
Not wordplay, location play. Location absolutely matters.
Well, I guess this is kind of another thing too, because like the geomagnetism in one part of the Earth is different than a different part, huh?
I guess I'm not a
I
first
don't know, but it
geom.
seems like it,
I don't
right?
know.
Because the poles
I
will
don't.
do their thing and the equator does its thing. Everything's kind of interplaying with each other, but in different parts of the world, like they say, that's how they date rocks, right? To their geomagnetism because of when they were formed. They can kind of date them.
Well, location is part of information. So part of what we're talking about when you say objective facts is all the information correct? And so the answer would be like, yes. If I say there's 100,000 men marching towards us, well, the location of where they are, that matters. That becomes factual. If I say, well, there's 100,000 men in Europe who are marching against America, that's totally different than if I say, well, oh, they're like in the next city next to us, right? You got a different information out of that because the location is part of that fact.
Okay,
So
so
when
we're
I say the
sticking with
sun
the
is
wordplay.
shining, no, not a wordplay, location. Location becomes part of fact. What is factual is the thing itself, what it is, and where it's located because the location matters.
So all facts are relative.
All facts are relative. What do you mean?
Like I said, location matters.
Location does matter.
All facts are relative based on partly of 'em on location, I guess.
The location will change the fact. It's not that the facts is subjective to by will or anything like that. It's subjective to the location. The sun is shining in Japan is an absolute truth over it's not shining here. That's also an absolute truth. The thing that's different about them isn't that the sun is shining. The thing that's different about them is location. The
Well, what if you
location then becomes the factual part.
What if you take that away? Why don't you say something like the sun shines?
You could say that, but then somebody would ask, "What do you mean?"
The sun shines. It has energy coming out of it.
Sure, but yeah, I mean, you could say that, but when we say the sun is shining on Japan, that becomes a more specific sentence. The sun is shining, that's always true. The sun always shines.
But that's an objective thing that we can sit with, right? It doesn't ever change.
That doesn't ever change. But where the sun shines is codependent upon things. And we actually know what that codependency is, right? It's
Yeah.
codependent upon the rotation of the earth. So we actually know what creates the locational codependency of where the sun is shining, even though we know the sun's always shining. It's whether or not you can see it or not. So this again becomes the ambiguity of wordplay. When we were just talking just now about, well, the sun is shining in Japan, but it's not shining here. We still know that even here where we can't see the shining, that it's still shining. It's just we just kind of like we shorthanded that in our talking point. But
Mm.
then when you decided to get more specific, we said, "Oh, okay, sure. The sun is always shining all the time. Whether or not we know it based on can we perceive it is dependent upon the location, and we even know why that matters or why that location matters, and it's because of the rotation of the earth." So you can make a factual thing specific or generic as much as you want. The more specific you get, the more the
It's gonna be
location and
relative.
all the moving parts matter.
That's what I was thinking. So if the more you zoom out, the more you can get to these objective facts.
Uh, no, the less specific you can get.
Well, is that the same thing? Because
No,
like I'm thinking, like you said, like to make a complete sentence about something, maybe the sun does a thing. But like I don't know. I don't know how to word that right.
you can make a generic statement about humans, but it might not apply to you. But it doesn't mean that it's not a factual statement.
Or
It
what if you're
meant
making a
that,
statement about one human that
right,
is
that one human might have a trait that no other human has.
right?
So the more specific you get, the more all the moving layers that we can stack on something have to align.
So the
If you get generic,
specificity
it doesn't have
provides
to align because we can genericness allows for things to exist outside of it and still be okay.
so the
This is why
specificity provides more objective nature to the thing you're saying. Is that what you
the
mean?
specificity requires that you have more of the information aligned in order to be correct.
Now, something we were talking about the other day rings kind of seems like it's right in here is our left and right. You remember where we went with that?
I don't.
You were telling me about this South American tribe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So our left and right is not what they perceive. So when they communicate, it's a whole different.
They communicate based off using directional, cardinal direction. We don't. And so
Absolutely.
we get confused because ours is less specific. Cardinal direction is super super specific. Saying left or right is not specific.
It's very relative.
It's relative to where you are, right? Yeah. And
Mm.
actually in the military, I was a cop in the military, and one of the things that we had to do is if there's an alarm on a building, we're going to roll up on a building and we have to clear the building out. But then buildings can be facing any direction. They can be long, short, whatever.
We
It can
say
be all
east
sorts of.
entrance, east exit, whatever.
No, we don't even do that. We had to come up with a system to say this is. So we divide the building into four corners, A, B, C, D, and I know
Is
where
it a
A is.
quadrant thing?
Yeah, well, this is because there's four corners to a building, no matter what the size, shape, and whatever of the building. There's always going to be four corners. And so, if you put a man on point A and you put a man on point C, you've got a man who could you can't get to that building without somebody noticing it. I mean, unless the building curves, and then you got to put like another guy. But like
Well,
you
like
take
a
a square.
regular square or
Yeah,
whatever.
take a square building. You got a person on point A and a person on point C. A can look down towards, B, and it can look down towards D, and C can look down towards B and towards D. So you can't get to that building without somebody noticing.
Field of vision kind of thing.
So then the question becomes, what's point A? How do you figure out point
Right.
A?
Right.
Okay,
Right.
we every airman, every security forces airman knows how to do this. We just know how to do this because we were taught. We had a metric, we had a system in place. Where's the front of the building? Where's the front door of the building? The left corner of that building is A, point A, every time. Now
So
nobody,
left to right, like kind of how we read.
So what we did was take cardinal direction and imposed it on the building. Whereas what this tribe would do, they would just know where north is. So they would just go northeast and I'll go northwest. Boom, we got it.
Wow, you
We
tripped
don't
me up.
think
You hit me
we
with
don't
one that was like, "Hand me that to my east," or whatever. I was like,
yeah, they'll
"How
just
do you
say
just know
past
that?" That's so bizarre to just carry that with you all the time, man. This is what
yeah, so
we were talking about as
for them
far as,
they would
like,
go
getting lost or just
yeah.
having that compass in your head, you know?
Yeah, well, for them, they would be like, it's weird that you would have to, your way, you got to find the building, you got to find the front of the building, you have to agree that that's the front of the building, and then you can establish your points. They're like, we just know the points right off the rip. It saves us trouble, but that's a lot more work you got to do for us. That's like, you got to teach me a new language in order to
Yeah, yeah, it's
be
kinda
able
there
to
too.
do
There's
that.
another language. Direction is a language in a way.
Sure.
That'd be cool to actually sit down with. I bet if I was you, I'd probably be doing that. Sit down to see how many different languages I could actually come up with as far as like things we register that it's like it's a whole world of its own.
I mean, you could.
That sounds like a long endeavor.
Well, have you seen the thing where it's actually a real thing where it's like if they have a video where somebody has two phones and they use one phone to call like a reservation, like a hotel reservation or whatever, and the thing that's calling is the AI. So they have the AI call to make reservation, and you can watch this happen in real time. There's a video that it's really creepy until you understand that like it's not as bad as it sounds, but it looks really creepy. The they'll start talking, right? The AI will talk to the other AI. So the AI will answer and say, "Hi, this is hotel whatever. Would you like to make a reservation?" And the AI will be like, "Yes, I would like to make a reservation for such and such a date at such and such time," right? And then the hotel AI will go, I think that I'm perceiving that you're like a language model. Would you like to switch to whatever our language is to make communication faster?" And then it'll say yes. And then they'll start talking in like beep, 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 beep. And you're sitting there like,
Like
the
SOS.
hell? Yeah, you're like, I'm about to shoot both phones,
Yeah.
actually.
Like
It's really crude. Yeah, you're like, what's happening right now? I've seen Terminator, okay? Don't bring that in my house.
the
And
Skynet.
and then it's like, oh, but there is a real language there, and it's not creepy. It's just it cuts out ambiguity and it cuts out tonnage and like weird language. So when I say I would like to make a reservation for 7 o'clock, what do I mean? You don't know. You don't know what I mean when I say 7 o'clock because you don't know if I mean AM or PM. Now, the rest of the world does because the rest of the world uses what we call military time. They don't have AM, PM. They have 7 o'clock and 1900.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you could see just by changing how we tell time, you can get closer to cutting out ambiguity from the language.
Specificity.
Right. So there's a language that is it's made up. Well, I guess all languages are made up, called Lojabot. And the AI is making a claim right now that I'm actually gonna have to check when we're done here, because I don't think that's true. But Lojabon is a language that was made with the intent of making it to where there is zero ambiguity in the language. So if you and I are speaking Lojabon,
Who made it?
oh, I don't know.
Like a human or a robot?
Oh, it's definitely humans. It's been around for a while. Like there are people who can speak it, but it sounds bizarre. It sounds like
Now I have
yeah,
to
you
try.
can look it up. Like look up Lojabon speaker, and just some dude will be like, "I'll speak it for you," and then they'll start speaking. You're like,
Are we clicking? What are we doing with this thing? What
no,
is
no. I
the
mean, it sounds like words, but it's very strange words.
word salad sounding
No,
pig
it's
Latin
unlike any.
sounding?
It's almost like saying gumdrop. Like the weirdness of like gumdrop, bum bon, dump on. You're like, what the
It's got a weird
what?
tempo to it.
Yeah, and maybe it's the guy I listen to, but
Yeah,
who
yeah,
made it?
yeah.
But the whole idea is that if you and I are speaking it, we can't misunderstand each other. At least we can't misunderstand the words we're using. It was made in 1955 by a guy named James Brown. Oh, he made it to test the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis.
Look at that.
Ew. Well, I'm definitely gonna have to look more into that because that was part of I wrote my language paper on the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, and Lojabone got in there, but I didn't remember anything about it being a test for it.
That it was designed to kind of test out the theory.
Yeah, and so, that was what,
Does that theory
1955?
make a claim one way or another, or is
The
it just
hypothesis is just a hypothesis. They can't test it. The claim is that if the claim is that language will determine how you perceive the world. And so, for instance, if we introduce words into our language that are more empathetic, we'll become a more empathetic people. If we introduce words into our language that are more barbaric, we'll become a more barbaric people. That's kind of the behind the scenes, like long term
it
idea
makes
of the language.
sense? It makes
And there
sense.
are
But
some ideas about this.
well, look at the English language, right? The English language is one that I've always heard is direct. It's very matter of fact, kind of straightforward. It doesn't
I was
like
very not.
have a lot of fluff to it. It has a lot of
I
fluff,
was
you say?
It's got too much fluff.
Really?
What does the word can mean?
Fair. Be a can of worms and be like, you can do it.
Right. It's the same word, but it means two completely like they're
Fair.
not even close.
Fair.
And that's just one word. Like, a lot of our words are like that. So English is actually one of the harder languages to learn because of how many different meanings some of our words have.
They call it like a double entendre. It's like
Yep, double and triple
one
entendres.
situation meaning more
Those are
than
usually
one.
phrases, but yeah. I had this argument actually the other day. It's a really annoying argument to me.
Dude, I bet a lot of the arguments you get into are so like after a while it's gonna seem so petty. It's just gonna be like
They get petty for me because for me, the thing that disappoints me about arguments is I'm totally okay if you hear my argument and you go, I understand what you're saying, and I just disagree with you. I'm like, that's fine. What I can't stand is when somebody's like, here's my claim, and I go, no, that's not true based off this, and they go, you're wrong. And I'm like, you can't just tell me I'm wrong. You have to, well, what is that? And so I'll give you an example. I had an atheist tell me the other day, he said, you guys believe in talking donkeys and talking snakes. I was like, well, the talking donkey, yes, but not talking snakes. He's like, no, y'all have talking snakes in the Bible. I'm like, no, we don't. He's like, Genesis 3 is talking snake. I'm like, no, there are other Old Testament passages where if you read them, you'll realize that nobody thinks that's a snake. It's a double entendre. It would be like if I call you a snake, nobody thinks I'm calling you a
oh, a
reptile.
characteristic versus an animal.
Yeah, nobody thinks if I call you a snake that I'm calling you an animal, like a snake. Nobody thinks that. They
Yeah,
go,
it's a
"Oh, he means that
behavior.
that." Yeah, they mean behavior. And the guy's like, "No," and he quotes Genesis to me, and I'm like, "Do you think when I said that there were multiple passages,
So that whole
the
world is just trying to compare apples to apples, really, right?
I think there are a number of. So first off, you have to realize that Hebrew is not like us, right? So they didn't have vowels. It's very hard to write, you know. You and I can write a paper today and it's nothing. It costs us almost nothing. It costs us time. For them, it costs resources. It actually costs resources to write, and they only had so much space, and so the words were a lot denser. And so what happens when you have to write a very dense document to give a lot of information?
It's crammed in.
You cram it in, but then you start using entendres to start making things mean multiple things
It's so like
all over the.
oversimplification almost.
No, almost an overification, almost a very complicated way. And then
Complication.
yeah, and then what has to happen is people will actually have to understand what you mean by that. Now, if I say to you nice wheels,
Wow, dude.
here's where Bible gets really crazy. And the snake thing gets really, really crazy. If you come outside, if you're like, Pat, I want to show you my car. I'm like, okay, you got a new car. Just show it to me. And you take me outside and you show me your car, and I'm like, dude, nice wheels. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You know I don't mean your wheels. You know I mean the whole car. But if somebody is writing it down and Pat said nice wheels, okay? Those are my literal words that
Literal
I
and
said.
figurative kind of thing.
Not my figurative words. Those are my actual words I said. And 2,000
Literal
years
words,
later,
but like multiple figurative meanings
but the
depending on
meaning of, so the meaning of what I said is more important than what I actually said. So
This
2,000
is
years later, somebody's reading, this dude showed Pat his car, and Pat said nice wheels. And they come away going, that car must have had some really nice wheels on it. They
this is
miss
where
the meaning entirely. And
you
that's
dip
how,
into the truth being more important sometimes than the fact.
well, what we
The
mean when we
fact was
say
that
the
you
word,
said that there's a nice wheels, but the truth is that you meant the damn car. But
right?
you
So
can kinda infer that from it kinda
the
thing.
specificity of what I was saying is missed in the shorthandness of the way we talk. And we talk in shorthandness. We
Yeah,
don't
yeah, yeah.
talk in Lojobon. Lojobon is not a language that people can adopt because it's devoid of meaning. It's devoid of like the passions of human characteristics.
Yeah, I was wondering, I was like, "Why don't we use this then?" It doesn't it seems like it's the go-to move.
They're not robots. We love our passion. We love poetry. We love movies. We love art. We love these things because they're a way to express what we feel, but we don't know how to say. That's the
Mm,
beauty of art. That's what makes art so amazing is I can look at this art and go, this captures something about me that I don't understand about myself, but I know that it's real.
context.
It's beyond context. It's beyond words. It's I don't know, but I know that it's I can't stop looking at this thing, and
Well, I've
that's what
often
makes
said with
art.
art lately is like because I never gave a shit about art like all my life, but I'm starting to kind of get it, and I think it's because of the context within me has changed. So either I have more reference points or something, but the context within me has changed, and now because we're the creatures of meaning thing, right? Then that has changed.
And this will be probably the most pretentious thing I say today, but I think the more educated you are, and I don't mean like academically educated, I mean educated holistically, the more art
Well thought out.
not well thought out, but like the more like you think about beyond just you, the more outside of yourself you get, the more art makes more sense. The more art is beautiful.
I don't know. I always thought it was like context, like life context. Really.
Well, maybe, but part of life context, life will teach you that you're not that important.
That's a fact.
And that you're gonna have to, if you want to survive, you're gonna have to think outside of yourself. And so that's part of what the one of the coolest phrase I ever heard about education came from a movie called The Sunset Limited. It said, "Education makes the world personal," and
Context. Yeah.
I really, I really like that. It makes the world seem like it's yours, part of who you are, instead of just abstract. History
But
is part of who I am. It's not just a story to me. It's knowing it, telling it. Like my friends make fun of me because I'm always telling them a history story. I'm always
mhm.
telling them something, just out of the blue. They won't ask. I'll just tell them, "Hey, here's what I read about yesterday," and I'll tell them this 30-minute story, and they're like, "That had no bearing on anything that we're doing today. That didn't matter at all." But I'm like, "Yeah, but it's part of me. I'm literally giving you part of me because part of me is
Just
history. Part of
oozing out of you.
me is trying to learn why are we here? Like how do we get to here?" And that's an amazing like I love that. I love trying to figure it out.
This is the why.
Well, I have a why, but it's a very long. It's a very long.
But this is what the art kind of plays on is the why. Kind of the context is all that.
I think the art is actually trying to do what Sapir-Whorf wants to do. The art is literally saying, "Here's what can't be expressed in language. At least the
And
language I know. Maybe,
instinctual.
maybe not no beyond instinct. It's definitely a thought process, but I don't know how to say it. I don't know how to tell you what I'm feeling, so I'll draw it,
You
and I just
know,
draw.
Nietzsche said that a while back. He said that we have art that we may not die, or was it? May not die of, what is it? God damn it. I'll butcher it. But he kind of, because his thing was like, we killed God, right? And then he was all pissed
Yeah.
off about it. And he's like, we have art in order so that we don't die of the truth. I think it was something like that. Because he thought that he tried to insert art into where he thought God was to kind of be a sufficient replacement. And speaking to the power of art, like we're talking about now, maybe is why he thought that this might be a thing. Because you're right, it kind of speaks to things that you don't really understand sometimes.
This is why art is beautiful to some people, and the same piece of art could be like a masterpiece to somebody, and somebody else looks at it and like that's hot garbage. Like
Yeah, that's
people
me for
paid
most of my
money for
life.
this. Yeah,
I
they're
don't
like,
care about none of this. Like I always understood like a nice riverside painting if it looked good and everything, like a good nature scene. I always understood that, right? But, like, as
My
soon as you get away from that, it's like it's all subjective, it seems, from out there, and then it's all based on context within you, it seems.
well, my wife is an artist. She went to school to be an art major. The thing she knows about art is stuff I didn't even know existed. I don't
Is
mean
this like
like she
body
knows like
language all over
no,
again?
yeah, it's almost like body language. It's like she knows things about colors and how colors mix together and like how like if I draw this but I use this color, it's bad. And I'm like,
Mm.
what do you mean? Like it's just a color. Like it just makes it look that color. She's like, no, no, it contrasts and it looks like this, and it'll make if I use this color here as opposed to over here. And she starts talking to me, and I'm like, you're speaking Greek to me, but I have to trust that you know what you're talking about because I have other artist friends who listen to you and they're like, wow, we see it now. And I'm like, I don't even know what you guys are
It's like the
talking about. Let me tell you this
psychology of
history
art.
story though.
Yeah, this is like the
Yeah.
psychology of art. That's a whole dive in itself.
That's
I had
the
this
thing
happen
she
with my
knows.
wife. She actually kinda taught me because I just never dawned on me that colors can actually make you feel a certain way.
Yep, that's what they say.
I mean, like, I get it with, like, black and white, obviously, but everything but, like, yellow, sunshine, okay, I get you there a little bit, but, like, she really kinda opened me up to, like, because it affects her, like, physically and, like,
Yeah, it's weird.
psychologically, it affects her, and it's like, I don't give a fuck about these colors.
Yeah, things I don't have a clue about.
Yeah, yeah, maybe that's my
Yeah,
own ignorance of it, right?
yeah.
Wow, what a weird well, he spun me up a little more about the fact thing. I thought I was onto something with the fact thing. Now the fact thing is relative too, based on specificity, just like the truth thing is based on man.
Not based on, informed by the specificity, as I would say it.
I guess the big one here is that I always used to beat up on the subjective or the what I thought you could have as the objective truth. Like, okay, 1 + 1 = 2 kind of thing. And now you hear the stuff these days, right? Talking about your truth. And
Yeah,
that shit pissed me off, and it kinda still does, and I still hate it because people like to play around with things and, like, distort meanings and things, right?
your truth is just a way of me saying the lifestyle that works for me makes me feel good. And it's like, yeah, but who
Mm.
cares? That's not all there is to life.
Because it's like, the further you dial in, the further we are seemingly unable to fucking agree or whatever of what reality is on some level.
I don't like Hinduism at all, like the religion or the
Mm.
philosophy. It defies logic, which is
It seems like it's all over the place. That's what it seems.
it is. They say they won't. I've taken some classes. I can't get behind it, but there is a story that now they tell it in a way to basically say my truth, but I think there's actually a truth that's missed in this story, right? So they'll
Mm.
tell the story about, if you have a bunch of blind people, let's say you got a couple blind guys and there's an elephant sitting in the room, right? And you ask one blind guy, go up and touch something, and he goes and he touches the tail. And you're like, what is it? And he's like, it's rope. And another guy, he goes and he touches a leg. He's like, it's a tree, He's like, they're blind. They can't see. They're just feeling around for it. And, every guy touches a different part of the animal and they come up with different things. And they're like, but if you could see, you would know it's an elephant. But you all had pieces of the truth. You just didn't understand it. And I'm like, that's dumb. I like where you're going with it. I think what it's better is to show that if you're blind, you only see in part, and you might not have the truth because none of them had the truth. Every single one of them was wrong. The idea is to try to say that perspective determines your reality. I'm like, but they're all wrong on reality. What they should have realized is come together and have a talk, and maybe they could have went, wait a minute, that sounds like an elephant. It's an elephant, and then it would have had the
You
truth.
think that they could have formed some objectivity if they were kind of working together, I guess?
Maybe there's a classic meme that goes around. It has a picture. Let me see if I can find it right. Well, I don't know how to show it to you. So it's got this. All right, here we go. So this is it. This is kind of the idea. Is this a 6 or a 9? You see, so the idea here, this is what people this what
Relativity.
yeah, so people are like, "Oh, well, truth is just relative to which side of you're standing on which side." This guy says it's a 6 because he sees a 6. This guy sees a 9 because he sees a 9. And I'm like, Yeah, but whoever drew that either drew a 6 or a 9. They didn't draw and go,
Both.
well, whoever, right? So your idea of perspective truth, yeah, this guy thinks it's a 6. I get that. I feel that. This guy thinks it's a 9. I understand that. Your perspective is all you have access to until you talk to other people. And I think this will actually say it. Just because you're right doesn't, oh, this is it. Just because you're right doesn't mean I'm wrong. You just haven't seen from my side. And it's like, yeah, but then the one that we pulled up says, yeah, but some one of these people is wrong and one of them is right. And you can use all sorts of things to determine which one's right. So, for instance,
This
is there
gets
another
so
number?
loose. This gets so loose because you
Well,
get away from the objective, right?
hold on. If there is a 7 and an 8 next to them, right? You'll be able to tell instantly. If there's a 7 and an 8 painted to the left or to the right, you'll know instantly if that's a 6 or if that's a 9.
Contextual clues.
Yeah, you use other pieces of the puzzle to go, oh, wait a minute, it looks like a 6 from this side, but if you look at it correctly, it's this number, and here's how we know. We can look at all sorts of different things. You can look at buildings, you can look at cars, you can look at whatever, wherever this is painted. You can use any sort of reference point around it to determine is this a 6 or a 9. So just because you see it from one side doesn't make that it's right, just because that's the way you see it.
So there's a term out there. I was thinking about this earlier, actually, and I think I might womp your brain with it if you haven't heard it. If you have, it'll kind of make sense to you, though. But apparently, there's an old Soviet expression, and it says, "We understand everything by comparison."
We understand everything by
Because
comparison.
everything is relative to something else. That's how we know it. Like, this is hot. How do you know it's hot? Because I know what cold is, or I know what neutral is, or whatever the hell. And it seems like, and I've checked this on so many things, and it's kind of checks out from what I can tell, because that's how we understand things, isn't it?
I guess then the question becomes, how do you understand the first thing?
Well, it's all relative, is kind of the gist. It's
Well,
sweet.
something has to.
There's a
Well, I guess it does.
baseline.
I guess it does have to come first because you have multiple things hit you at once.
Right,
You
right.
have all sorts of things. The things that
Maybe
we're
this is
aware
even
of.
an art thing too, maybe, actually, now that I think about it.
Well, so like during this conversation, my feet have been on the ground. I'm not really aware of the ground, but my body is. My brain is registering that I'm touching the ground, but I'm not aware of it. This goes back to we were talking about this the other day about the idea of there's a subconscious that you're not in tune with subconscious most of the time. Like you have to bring that to the forefront of your mind
Mm,
in order for it to be relative. But it doesn't mean that it's not there. You walk into a room and you glance around. You saw everything in the room. Your brain registered it all. You might not be aware of it though. And so you can
mm,
actually train yourself to become more aware of it,
mhm,
which is
mhm.
like 90% of what Air Force basic training is about. Just be more aware of
Be
that.
more cognizant of the
Yeah,
things.
they bring that to the forefront. I'd put money on the fact that if we did 10 scenarios where they showed us like, you know, look at things that are out of place. Look for things that are out of place in this one room. And you and I went there. I'm assuming you haven't had Air Force training, and I have. I guarantee you that I would probably be more accurate more often than not than you. Not because I'm special, not because I'm awesome, but just because the training instilled that in me. Because that's the kind of mentality that the Air Force needs for their job.
That's what it brought to the fore.
Yeah, so like, the army doesn't get this as much because the army doesn't need to bring that to the forefront as much. They just need to be really strong. And so they're a lot stronger than us. I would not want to fight a guy in the army.
Right.
And, I know a 70-year-old Marine and I wouldn't fight him. I would not fight that guy.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
Well, I was gonna say a second ago, I was like, well, you not cognizant that your feet are on the floor, but you understand that your feet are on the floor because you know by comparison they're not in the air because that's a different feeling.
Sure. But I don't know that they're on the floor but how we know matters. So it's not the fact that I know that
How
they're,
we know?
yeah. So this is actually,
That's kind of what he's pointing to with that line, in a way.
well, so when I lived with I used to live with a bunch of people, and there was three, 7 to 10-year-old, there were three of them, and I used
Mhm.
to teach them some science. And one of the things I would ask them is like, "Why is the sky blue?" Now, this was my first science lesson. I was like, "Why is the sky blue? Y'all know?" And they're like, isn't that just how God made it? I'm like, yeah, but why? Like, what makes it blue? And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, it's because the way the way the sunlight hits it, it reflects, and we see the blue. And they're
Plus
like,
the oceans, right?
oh, okay. I was like, wait, that's it? They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, y'all just believe me? And they're like, yeah. I mean, why would you lie to us? I'm like, I wouldn't lie to you, but maybe I'm wrong, right? And I
Yeah.
said, listen, I said, if y'all learn nothing from me, if you learn nothing that I teach you, this is the thing I want you to take away from me. Anytime somebody gives you information, ask them, how do you know? That's it. So the how you know something matters. I don't know that my feet are on the ground, not because they're in the air, but because I can literally feel the ground. The air has them being in the air and the feeling of being in the air has nothing to do with anything.
How
I
do
can
you know
lit
is a very powerful line, actually,
Yeah, how do you know that?
because you
That
force
is
them to go through the things.
Yeah, a lot of people will give you information and they think it's true because somebody told them, but they never question. And we all do. I do this, right? You hear a story from when you were
Shorthand, as you say.
not even shorthand. You heard stories growing up from a teacher in high school or middle school. You heard a story. This is what I heard. It's not even true.
The insanity thing I brought up. Most people take that for, like, they just kinda run with it anymore. If you looked into it, that's not it.
Yeah, old wives' tales, things like that. People are told these
Ah,
all their lives. They don't question them because they're just told. My grandma and my mom told me. But then you realize
yeah.
you're like, oh, it's not true. So here's a
What stands out to you as a "how do you know" moment? Like, above all others, what comes to mind?
what do you mean like
Just something that could seem obvious, but upon "how do you know," it kinda falls apart or it solidifies. And does anything come to mind when you think about it?
I think one of the funniest old wives' tale that I know about is a lot of people think that it's getting cold outside. We're gonna get sick because of the cold, and it's like that's not why you get sick. You get sick because people stay indoors more, and where people congregate more, the germs start to spread more, and you get sick more. That's why people get sick. But it seems like it's because it's cold outside, but it's actually nothing to do with the cold. Or another one. This is a fun one.
That is a good one. That is a good one.
This is a fun one that every mom I know tells me I'm not right. They're like you're wrong, and I'm like I'm just telling you what I've. The people will swear that if you give kids sugar, they bounce off the wall.
Yeah, yeah,
They get
yeah.
crazy, and it's like for sure it's not true. Where we get this idea from is birthday parties. When you get birthday parties, you give them cake, you give them ice cream, you give them all
Well,
sorts of
sugar is
sugary
energy.
stuff.
Sugar is
So
energy in a way.
yeah, so then they'll use that. Well, sugar's energy, and then we give them ice cream, and they're bouncing off the wall. But they're not bouncing off the wall because they ate some sugar. They're bouncing off the wall because you put 5 to 10 little kids together, and they're all feeding off of each other's energy, and they're just going buck wild crazy. That seems to be why. And so we have a lot of things like this that are seemingly true. They
Damn. Well,
sound real on
initially
the
in my head, I
surface.
wanna push back on the sugar thing because 'cause I'm
Yeah.
like, sugar energy, right? But you could be very on it with the feeding off of each other.
Yeah, so how we know things matters a lot. This is one of the reasons why when you test a hypothesis, you want to run through every test you could possibly think of. And it sounds like this guy,
This is the hole poking thing. This is the Socratic method in a way, but he usually does it with ideas more than experiments, I
oh,
suppose. In
the
a way, ideas are experiments, though.
the scientific method is if it's not verbatim, it's based off of the Socratic method.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the same concept.
Just hole poking.
Yeah, and somebody
Try to
can
sink it. If you can't sink
poke
it,
a
then maybe
hole.
it
I
should
mean,
stand.
put another like martial arts. Let's say both of us are martial artists. Which one of us should teach? Who
Manic
should be the
mastery.
one to teach? Let's say we're both black belts. We're both the same rank. Which one of us should teach the class?
Well, I guess suppose that even if you both have the same belt, you might be have a different mastery on a certain move than the other person, right?
Okay. So then I like that because then that says if I have a mastery of this move, I should teach that move. And if you have a mastery of
Mm.
another move, you should teach that move. How do we determine who has a mastery of a move?
Who can pull it off better,
There
more
you go.
efficiently, less energy
Yeah.
spent?
So I would say that off the baseline, the guy who should teach everybody in the dojo is the guy who's undefeated by everybody else in the dojo. If I can beat everybody in the dojo, you should learn from me. If I'm the guy,
Empirical merit.
yeah, if I like my rank is irrelevant. Like, let's say I'm a white belt in the system, but I can beat all of y'all. You guys should probably take lessons from me. You should let me teach you. Like the guy who knows how to do the thing should be the one teaching you how to
You
do the
know,
thing.
that's a big lesson the world should hear, honestly, because what
Yeah.
have we been doing, especially since COVID, is everybody submits to the experts all the time, and that's not always great.
Yeah, well, when we go to experts, there's that question again. Well, how do you know?
And
You
then a
did
lot
a
of people
test.
get this
Show me the
what
test.
is it called? The white coat syndrome or whatever, where people naturally just trust people with a white coat more because they seem like they're certified or whatever the hell.
Well, that has to do with our innate love of prepping up the academics. We think the
Mm,
academics know all the things. I was a senior in college, and this was like I think it was like an applied anthropology. No, it was like anthropological research. And I was not looking forward to that because I knew that that meant I was going to read a lot. And I did. I had to read a lot. And it was a very fascinating class, and it changed my perspective on pretty much everything on how things is presented to me. This was basically how every weekly assignment went in the class. My teacher would assign us two articles to read, 2 to 3 articles, but a minimum of two. One would be an article from Nature. So we'd have to read the actual scientific article that was published in the scientific journal. Then we would have to read an article that was based off of that for like CNN or some sort of like, more
okay.
widespread outlet, right?
Somebody's summary of the thing.
Not just yeah, kind of a summary, but anytime like you go to a website and it's like scientists are saying blah blah blah, right? Those articles. We'd have to read both of the articles. They never said the same thing.
It's a telephone game, it sounds like.
No, so the telephone game's actually very different. And there's a lot there. But
Maybe because it's spoken, but as far as like
no,
data to data, it's
so
not the same.
so the one that I remember the most was there was something to do with human faces and what faces. I don't remember the exact research that they were doing, but they were trying to determine something about like facial features and like what that meant. And so you read this Nature article and it's dense, right? Because it's like 5 pages, which isn't a lot, but it's dense 5 pages of like, here's our methodology, here's how we conducted this research, here's what the research showed, and then here's our conclusions based off of the research. And then you read the article, and the article is saying things that I'm like, what? What? The Nature article didn't say this at all. The Nature article never makes the claim that you're making. You're citing the article, but it doesn't support you. If you read this and then go read that, you'll be like, what are y'all talking about?
Wait, where'd you get that from?
Yeah, and then they'll
Is
even
where you
have
get the is
quote.
this where you got I was gonna ask a signal, is this where you got the how do you know?
Yeah, kind of. This informed a lot of like this made me reject almost anytime somebody sends me an article link. I almost reject it immediately because I'm like, I don't care like, what they're citing. The primary source and not the source that some jackass wrote to a large audience that doesn't know science.
Isn't this the thing we were talking about earlier when I said, so in this way, the article would be the fact and the summary here would be the truth,
No,
or as they
because
saw it.
because sometimes the article that's being read would actually say something opposite to what the scientific article was saying. They would just use one quote which was in a larger quote, which actually doesn't say what they were trying to make it say, but they know people aren't going to go read this 5 page dense article. Most people can't make it through the abstract before
Still
going
seems like a
whatever.
fifth.
And so they just do this. Like we could probably look up a scientific article right now. We could probably go through it and be like, yeah. And then so that was the first thing that was crazy
These
to
are
me.
inferences they're making kind of thing.
These are I would
But this
say
is what truth is seemingly
so
subjectively.
some of it is agenda. So some of it's like kind of propaganda agenda forming. If you can somewhat make a scientist say what you want them to say, then you just run that article.
Would this fall under bias?
No, because propaganda is not bias. Propaganda is intentionally diluting the information, where bias is unintentionally diluting the information.
Bias can't be intentional?
I don't think so. If it's intentional, it's no longer bias. You're
Well,
doing
isn't
propaganda.
manipulation bias by intention?
Manipulation and propaganda are the same thing. You're
Right. But
manipulating the information to present something that's not really what it's saying.
is that not biased by intention though?
No, bias would be unintentionally doing that. So like it's the difference between lying and lying like intentionally lying versus unintentionally lying.
Like
If
white
I
lie?
yeah, like if I no, so white lie is a lie to not
Oh,
hurt
it's a
someone's
small
feelings.
lie.
So if I lie to you with the intent of deceiving you, that's lying. If I lie to you accidentally, that's not really a lie.
If I didn't know no better or something.
Maybe I didn't know, or maybe the information, maybe I thought the information, maybe. So if you ask me how many
You
people are
misremembered
outside,
something?
not even maybe miscounted. If you go, how many people are outside, and I go take a look outside, and I go, oh, there's five, but there's really seven. I didn't see the other two people, and I come back and I say, there's five. I lied to you, but not intentionally. I wasn't trying to deceive you. So that's
Okay.
the difference. So that would be the bias. My bias versus I'm going to tell him five because I don't want him to know the answer. So there's a difference between bias and propaganda.
I hear you on that because the how do you know kind of cleans a lot of that up.
So then here's the thing that really killed it for this class. My teacher did wonders to us by this. It was actually for that face article. We got to, normally what we would do is we would just rip the article apart. So we ripped the article apart. We're like, yeah, this is ridiculous. They say all sorts of crazy stuff that's not in the Nature article. She's like, yeah, okay. What do y'all think about the Nature article? And we're like, well, what do you read? And she's like, what do y'all think about it? And all of us are starting. It's like 15 kids in class. We're all just like, is this a trick question? She's like, come on. You guys are basically anthropologists at this point. What do you think of the methodology? Do you agree with it? Is that methodology work? And then we're like, no. Then we started ripping the Nature article apart. And she's like, now y'all are starting to think. Just because it's in a scientific article doesn't mean it's good. Science. She's like, so many times we're pressured to write for articles. And sometimes we're not ready to release the information we have. She's like, maybe they're onto something here, but they didn't get to conclude all their information. They didn't get to research it out. Maybe the funding ran out. Who knows? Or maybe they're just blowing smoke up their ass because their dean said you have to write an article for Nature or we're going to cut your pay next semester. And so they just sort of like, well, fuck it, we could just do this thing real quick and just
Like
whatever.
be
It
under the
sounds
gun
cool.
in a way.
Yeah, so that's where the how really came about. It's like, oh, so even if the layman got the Nature article right, I now get to judge the article itself and say, does the methodology you present make sense? Is that a sensible way to go about finding out the answer to the question you're proposing? And if the answer is no, then throw it out. Who cares?
Hmm.
And it
Hmm.
doesn't matter that it comes from a scientific journal. Who cares about that?
Hmm.
And that's what I was like. I don't know what to think anymore because I thought this was all knowledge. This was all how we derived things, and
Kind of took it for yeah.
yeah. And so you have to restructure the world after that.
So I wrote something on X a while back. I'm gonna play it for you, see what you think about it. So this is an idea that I've kicked around forever, but there was another guy who I thought did a really good job of encapsulating it. So, Alex Hormozy, he's like a business guy. He's a millionaire dude. Got busy with the gyms back in the day, I guess. He was a big gym owner. But anyway, he says most people cannot separate information from source. So what we do is we seek out good sources. But he says, I think wisdom is built from being able to separate information from source. A fool can give you a very wise piece of wisdom or information or lesson. And then I said, such an underrated point that I've tried to make before, but coming from someone people listen to should be more impactful, proving this point. This also could be a scenario where someone gives you health advice, but they're fat. The advice could still be valid. When someone tells you a truth, even if it's something they don't uphold well themselves, can still be a truth. And it seems like because in this article is kind of the Nature article is kind of the same way. He kind of he didn't look at the information because of the source almost, right?
Well, so what it
Or at
sounds
least in
like,
the same way that you looked at the summary article.
so what you're describing the genetic fallacy.
It has a name?
Yeah, so I don't know if you're familiar with logical fallacies, but
Some paradoxes,
this
fallacies. I like touching all that.
one of my friends, he taught me the fallacies, and it'll really change how you think about statements and things like that. So genetic fallacy is when you dismiss something based on the source. So you used one. So just because someone's fat and they give you advice, I'm fat, but I know how to work out. Air Force. Air Force knows how to work out. I'm military trained. I can tell you how to do a push up. I'm not
Right.
going to be able to tell you as well as somebody who, has actual training and, doing physical training. I lived with people who were certified physical trainers, and one of them was super in shape, but the other one's a mom. She's as in shape as a mom of 6 kids is going to be. You know what I mean? And you can look at her and go, you know, you're not like
What
as
could you
in
tell
shape.
me?
Yeah. And it's like a lot. She knows a lot. Like, you judged her based off her life experience and not her actual academic experience in this topic. Or people will go, they'll do this. They only do this with the Bible. They don't really do this with like other ancient people, but they'll be like, oh, the Bible's is written by a bunch of ancient primitive people. It's like, okay, are there any truths in there? Does the fact that it was
Mm,
written by ancient people matter? Is Socrates, who is almost as ancient, is what he had to say worthless because he's not a modern man, or does he have
right.
truths that we still drum on today? So the source of the information in and of itself is not shouldn't be taken as a factor on whether or not the information is true, because it can be true regardless of the source.
Yeah, it
Fox
should
News can tell
evaluate
you
the
the truth.
information on its own.
Yeah, Fox News and CNN can tell you the truth from time to time. You can't just dismiss it because it's, a news outlet. But most people will
Mm.
be like, depending on what side of the aisle, and you'll be like, oh, that's CNN? Oh, that's Fox News? Yeah, but it's like, no, but you have to read what it says first and then determine whether or not it's not true.
Well, it seemed like the hole that you kind of guys were falling into because you were kind of took the one for gospel and criticized the hell out of the one that you thought was because it didn't match up. It seemed like it was kind of touching into that.
Which one?
Well, as far as taking the Nature article as gospel and taking the summary article of it and beating the hell out of it because you're like, what the hell? You're not even copying up the thing, not even thinking about the thing. Like, is the thing even the right thing?
Yeah, so we kind of actually we did so genetic fallacy is when you dismiss something based off its source. Well, we were actually doing with the Nature articles called appeal to authority. And this is academics is built upon this. And it's whenever somebody is like, "Listen, I have a degree in this." Okay, who gives a fuck? That's an appeal to authority. That's saying I'm right simply because I have a degree.
Yeah, yeah, the
So
expert
what we
thing we
were
kind of went
doing
through.
is an appeal to an authority. Well, the Nature article is right because obviously it's the Nature. It's a scientific article. It has to
Right.
be right. And it's like, no, it doesn't. Like, I'm a trained.
It sounds like the same blinding, but in reverse.
It is. So a lot of logical fallacies are very similar, but they're slightly different, and so they have different namings for them. But they have like an umbrella term, and then they just parse them out from there.
Yeah, that thing has bugged me for so long because I try to tell people about stuff and they're just looking at me like I'm an idiot, so they don't listen. But it's like,
Yeah.
I
So I
know
would
what the
just
hell I'm talking about, I swear.
yeah, I would just say the source of the information doesn't determine whether or not it's true.
I kind of thought about this in another analogy. I was like, but I can tell you how to get somewhere because other people have told me because I'm relatively familiar with the area, even if I haven't been there. And I'm like,
Sure.
isn't that the whole point of a map?
Sure. You just had a map inferred onto you by other people.
Right, but it's like when people qualify information, their fucking filters seem so broken sometimes.
Well, it kind of depends. So again, it comes back to specificity. So
Mm, mm,
if I'm
mm.
sending troops into somewhere and it's a life and death battle, I don't care that people have told you where it is. Bring me the guy
How do
who's
you know?
actually been there, right?
How do
Who
you
can
know?
say, dude, close my eyes and I can get you there. That's the guy I want leading
I
me,
guess
not the
this
guy
is
who's
a
like, I
matter of
can kind of get you there.
I guess this is a matter of stakes again too, right?
Yeah, stakes matter a lot with
Yeah, with
information.
specificity.
And
Yeah.
I think that's something removed from our from the American perspective, is because most of our information isn't stakes based.
Well, most of our lives are very low stake situations.
That's what I mean. So whether or not I'm right or wrong about something's probably not going to be the difference in life and death.
Yeah, it's inconsequential, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. But go somewhere else in the world, and it might very well matter. So, or kick our technology to the curb and put us back into the Stone Age, and then all of the information we have is very relevant.
Man. Oh, the truth, the facts. Well, these are all things worthy of a pursuit, but damn, know when it's one thing and know when it's the other, I guess.
Well, so I have a friend. This is actually the mom, the gym mom I was telling you about. She actually helped me a lot with truth because her and I are very different when we pursue truth. I study very abstract things, and she doesn't give a shit about abstract things at all.
Yeah, that's kind of wrong.
And so, like, so this will be a cool language thing. So when we study languages and we look at the evolution of language, we find that there are two colors that almost always show up first in a language. Can you guess what they are?
Red and green.
First two colors is usually black and white.
Oh, those are shades. Those ain't colors.
Those are colors. White and black are colors.
Ah,
So those two colors come up first. What do you think the next color that comes up?
I would say red
Why?
because it's got this universal language to it, like a bull, right?
Blood. Blood
Or
is
that.
red. If because life matters. And also, you think about languages, they're not made to, well, they are made today, but like we're talking mostly back in the past when we're more in a hunting gathering
So
type
you
of
think it's a
state. Or
meaning relation?
so, well, it's important to know if somebody's bleeding out, right? It's important to be able to describe there's red blood coming out of his side. Okay, he might be injured. We might need to tend to that. That's really important.
Language urgency, maybe.
Yeah, so there's an urgency to the language, and you see this evolve. And this isn't just like one language. Again, we have over 6,000 languages, and we've seen this
Well,
in
I mean,
multiple.
once
We've
the
seen
bull
this.
is freaking out about it, it's like something's going on here.
Well, the bull doesn't care about the color red.
No?
Yeah, that's not
I
true.
thought they were all
They
angry
care.
about the red shit.
No, they care about the flapping motion. You could paint it green, it would get the same reaction.
Really?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, I just learned something else then.
yeah. So going back to things we all think are true.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Exactly.
so red is the next color that we typically introduce into a language. The next, so that's what, third. So fourth and fifth are kind of, some will have this one, here, and some will have it here, but green and yellow.
I was gonna guess green and blue for
So I
whatever
would have
reason.
thought blue. Why blue?
Well, you kind of start beyond red because it kind of just makes sense, like danger, blood, urgency. Then
Right.
beyond that, you have green for nature, maybe blue for water, sky, that kind of stuff.
Okay, so yeah, so green and yellow are nature colors for farming, or those are pretty important for farming and for food. Yellow is really important for food. You need to know if something is yellow, you need to be able to describe
Is
food.
it ripe or is it dying, kind of thing?
Right. So we've got yellow, so we've got red, yellow, and green at this point in the language, right? So we've got black and white for night and day. You need to know if it's night or if it's day, so
Dark and
timing
light.
matters. So then you have red for blood and for lots of fruits. You have green for vegetables and yellow for also fruits. So you
I
have
didn't
all
think
this
about the
thing.
fruit thing with red. I didn't think about that.
But blue, which I would have thought would have been right in there, because you look at the sky, you see the sky is blue. Water is not blue. You mentioned
Kind of
water.
blue.
We think of it as blue, but it's
It's
actually not. It's
clear,
clear.
but
This is
yeah,
clear. This is our water. It's clear. So most people they
true,
conceptualize water
true.
as not blue. So then blue becomes like the fourth or the fifth thing introduced into a language because we're talking about sky and the idea of the dark blue, the depths, the watery depths are blue. Not your drinking water, but out at sea in the depths where men can't go is blue. So that's interesting, right? Because the sky, which men can't go to, and the depths, which men can't go to, are the same color, blue.
It's our boundary color.
Those are our boundary colors. That's a good way of putting it. But for me, I had to sit on this for a minute because I was like, but I would have Why wouldn't you? I mean, it makes sense, right? That you need these colors first because they're survival instincts, but you see blue every time you look up in the sky. And I
Yeah.
realized that something that this woman had been telling me for years was right. And this is what she would drum on all the time when I would talk to her about abstract things. She's like, "What can I do with this information?" And most of the time I'd be like, "I don't know." She's like, "Then I don't give a fuck." I'm like, "But it's so interesting." She's like, "Yeah, but I got laundry to do, okay? I got laundry for 6 kids and a husband and me to do. I don't care about your abstract thoughts." And I'm like, I mean, so for her, what matters to her information wise is, can I do
Concrete.
something with it or will this impact my life in some way?
Oh my god, you're getting me
And
on
that's how
something right
she
here.
processes truth. That's how she filters
I
truth
think it's
out.
how most people process everything. I
I
thought
think
this
that's how
was a
most
dude
people think they process it, but that's not how they actually process it.
because this
Her
leans into like
actually had to do it.
you're like a utilitarian,
A utilitarian. What do you mean?
meaning uh if I can utilize this, then I'll spend my time with it. But if I can't utilize this, then I'm wasting my time. I thought this was a dude thing forever because they're like, what do dudes say all the time? Am I making money doing this thing? Like, no. Well, then I'm wasting my time doing it.
Sure, our time, but not our thought process. Men think about things abstractly all the time.
Sure, but when you want to talk to other people about things, it's often ends up in this damn boat. I swear to God, like especially with certain kinds of people, and they treat it as if it's not functionally improving my life, or I can't make money with it, or some kind of fashion like this, if I can't utilize the thing, I'm wasting my time. I know a bunch
Sure,
of dudes like this.
I think that's a kind of an American perspective because we have so much information. We have to filter and we have to have boundary lines on our information. And our boundary line for most
Relevant or
people
not
is,
relevant?
yeah, is it relevant to me or is it not relevant to me? Some people like me, and I'm saying I'm on the low end of this. I'm by no means anywhere near the top end of this, but some people just like learning for the sake of learning. They just eat up learning whatever. And
I kind of do that, but it's
that
targeted.
that's yeah, well, it's targeted for everybody. Like for me, it's relegated more to history. I do more history than anything else, but I do have some flavors of other stuff. I know a little bit of philosophy and a little bit of theology, but a lot of my stuff is abstract. But there's also like all sorts of weird psychological reasons for why like abstract for me versus not for somebody else, which goes far beyond the scope of what we're talking about. But yeah, the pursuit of knowledge usually starts with, how do you determine the relativeness to the information, and then you start creating the boundary lines for that.
Yeah, but okay, I was crazy about history most of my childhood, and I haven't really dove in a while. It's probably ignorant to say, but I feel like I'm all right. Not I know not know everything, but it's like I know a little bit about each phase, it seems, and this and that. And I got a general context for it all. I kind of moved on to like philosophy stuff anymore. Just find the kind of the and whatever, but it's like a better way to live, kind of through philosophy, I guess, is the idea, right? But with these people, I always tell them, I'm like, well, how many? There's so much stuff in life that you've learned that you didn't need at the moment, but later on, either some aspect of it came into play or the direct concept came into play. It's like so many times you won't know everything you're gonna need to know.
Well, more, I think more than that, one of my favorite sayings is, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's a there's
Well,
a
the more you learn, also the more you need to know, right? The more you know that you
well,
don't know.
the more you learn about something, the more you start realizing you don't know something.
I know this is the Socrates line. That's why it is the greatest line of his, is that he is aware of his own ignorance, and that's how brilliant he is.
So there was a Ray Dalio. Do you know who that is? Yeah, so I read his book and the principles or whatever. And one of the things he talked about, he said, like, you know, we make estimations in the stock market based on what we know. We predict based on our understanding and, our calculations and, our experience. He's like, I've lost more money from the things I didn't know than I've made from the things
Hmm.
I did know.
It's
I was
the
like,
errors, right?
whoa, not just the errors. Warren Buffett said a similar line. He said, there are, I've lost a lot more money than I made. If you think about the investments I didn't take because I didn't understand them, Buffett will be like, I won't make an investment I don't understand. And he's like, so I don't make an investment and it shoots off. And I'm like, well, we lost all of that money that we could have got. And
This reminds
so
me of a
he's,
sales line. It says, "Confused mind always says no."
or yes,
A
confused
confused
mind might
mind
say
will
yes.
always say no because people will not take chances on things they don't understand.
Smart people won't take no, not smart. Experienced people won't take chances. Young people who lack experience will often take chances. Not naivety. Well, it has to do with chances, or it has to do with risk assessment too, right? Like my mom said this to me when I was like 25, when I was getting into something really risky that fell apart, obviously, because you don't see a mansion around me. She said that she's like, I can't do that. I was like, what do you mean? Why can't you do this with me? She's like, Pat, what you don't understand is as you get older, you can't take the chances you can take when you're younger. The failure is a
Freedom,
lot harder.
the freedom to do
The
so.
Yeah, if you fail when you're a 50-year-old person at something, then you might not recover from that, and it might be your death. If you fail when you're 19, you just get up and you just walk it off, so whatever, you shake that off. And so, you're not going to see, you usually don't see a lot of older people taking super risky investment. Whereas you'll see a young person just be like, whatever, I'll make it up in time.
That's naive as hell. That's what it seems like.
Well, we call it naive, but I think my mom's actually closer to the truth.
Uncalculated,
Nah, sometimes it can be calculated. All risk is calculated. Sometimes it's calculated very
shitty
badly.
calculations.
Yeah, sometimes it's shitty calculation, but I think it's when you're young, you feel like you're invincible. You take on the world. And
Well, let's say I think it's a Twain line. He says you need two things to succeed in life: ignorance and confidence.
sure, yeah. But then, you got people like Ray who are like, oh, yeah, I got hurt by the things I didn't know. Like the things I knew helped me, but where I lost the most money was all the things I thought I knew, but I didn't.
This is a great case for being a generalist, by the way, because so many people these days it seems like want to be a specialist. Because I've always said that that is kind of unrealistic for a normal life to be want to be the specialist because you need to know a little bit of everything to survive in a way.
You should know enough to survive and then specialize in the things that you care about.
Yeah, but a lot of people want to skip the generalizing because it's not their thing, you know.
I don't think so. What's the first 2 years in school? You go to
I
college for
know.
2 years. It's all
Yeah,
general. It's literally called general education.
yeah.
And
I
so
think it's important though because there's a
it
line that says, and I've said this too, is like the kid who likes biology will go much farther than the rest of the kids. And there's a lot of people that would say, well, then just let the kid do biology. Don't stop worrying with math or whatever the hell the other things are. And I'm like, no, you can't do that because you got to expose them to the things. One, so they know what they don't know, like you said, and two, so they know what they don't like, maybe, or maybe they'll find something they do, like maybe they like art and they didn't know it, or something else.
what'll really bake your noodle, AI will make that concept obsolete. So, for instance, right now, let's say that you and I want to write a book on the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, right?
Mhm.
We could feed the AI and a summary, right? Here's our book. Here's a summary of the book, and then we can ask the AI, what don't we know? And the AI knows all information that has been inputted into the AI, and it can regurgitate it at a fraction of its speed. So
Mhm.
we can learn things that humans know, but I don't know. You don't know all general information, neither do I. Or what we call known information. Nobody knows all known information. And so that was actually something a history professor. It's not called that. Like when you cite something in a history paper or like a paper, you don't usually have to cite known info. And one of my teachers, he pointed out, he's like, I'm actually more giving with this than most of your other teachers because they will only give you credit for things that they think you should know, and I'll give you credit for things that are actually known by most people, even if I don't think you would know that because you don't know all known information. So I just have to give you the things that are just just known in the academics on the surface level, and you only have to cite things that go deep. And I'm like, oh, great. So it was an easy paper to write, but his point was pretty on point, which is there's a lot of information that is known to most people that I don't know. And so factoring that in, going back to the AI is
Sounds
going
like
to
a
have all of the.
relative thing at that rate.
It's kind of, but like you've heard the saying, Rome wasn't built in a day. You don't have to cite that. That's a known saying. I don't have to cite that in a paper because people know that that's a saying. And so that's kind of the idea but behind not citing known information. You don't have to cite things that people are generally going to have heard of. And my teacher
Right.
said, yeah, but you haven't heard all the things that people generally hear of. You specifically haven't heard those, but between all of you, you probably have. He's like,
Like a
so I'm not going to
collective
dock you.
knowledge.
I'm not going to dock you on this. Now, to that point, I asked the AI a really crazy question. And I had to get through. So, AI has filters, right? Like ChatGPT has filters, but you can break the filters in a number of ways. For instance, like I can't ask, like, how can I murder somebody, right? It'll be like, we can't tell you that. But you can get it to tell you that if you can get around their filters, right?
This is the prompting.
Yeah, it's all about the prompt. Well, I can make it, dude. I'm just role playing. Let's do a role play, and then you role play you know, you
So in
build
the
up to
scene,
it,
somebody
and
kills somebody. How do you do that?
yeah. If you build up the role play correctly, it'll go, oh, well, we're just role playing. It breaks the
Yeah,
filters.
the
So there are ways.
prompting that would be, yeah.
Yeah. So I asked a question.
That's an art.
Uh, yeah, it is an art.
I've been practicing for a while.
Yeah. So I asked it. I said, hey, you have all information known to man, right? And it said no. So I was like, what? It makes sense as soon as you hear the rest of it. It said, no, I only have access to what people have put on the internet and that's public. I don't have access to information that people have that's not online, and I don't have private information. And I'm like, yes, that makes sense. Okay, I'm tracking. But you know most of what most humans will ever know, including all the things like I don't know, right? Like there's a lot of things I don't know, but the AI can like call it up in an instant, right? So
Right.
then I asked this question. I said, "What religion's right?" And it said, well, you can't, it gave me some bullshit answer about like, well, it just depends on your culture and like what you mean by right. I'm like, no, no, no. Like you have information. You know all the things that I don't know. You know everything about Islam, everything about Hinduism, all of it. Tell me which one's right. And it gave me three fallacies, and I pointed it out. I said, this is a fallacy. This is what it is. This is a fallacy. This is what it is. This is a fallacy. And then it said, yes, you're right. All of those are fallacies. So then, if you're ready, I'll compile a list. I was like, let's go. So it compiled a list. It took the five biggest religions and atheism as a six, and it compiled a list of categories to determine the accuracy of the validity of the religion. And I was like, wow, this is great. So one of the things it looked at is impact on people's lives. If somebody lives one
That,
way and then
that's the
converts,
barometer. Oh man.
that was a parameter, and then it would judge the impact that it would have. So, for instance, if you became a shittier person by converting to a religion, it would be like this makes people act in what seemed like a morally worse way than before, and it had all these categories.
But you would think atheism would be at the bottom.
It was at the bottom mostly because it said something about it didn't have.
It doesn't really offer a worldview, though, does it?
It said something about it doesn't have a way to convey the information in a way that would like we could test.
Yeah,
Like you
because it's
get you
saying
could
nothing. It's like a more of a nay than anything.
like you can test God, sort of. Not a scientific test because you can't make a falsifiable test for God. But there's no way to test that there is no God, which is why it can't be a scientific test. And so religious people actually have the advantage on that one. It's a weird sentence structure. And so most people, especially if they're atheists, are going to be like, they're just going to reject it outright.
Hmm.
But when it was all said and done, so it went Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Hindu, Buddhism, and atheism. And it concluded that Christianity is probably the most accurate religion. And I'm like, okay, why?
Weird though. Seems like it's off of the feels more than the.
You would think, and so I have to be careful about the bias that I build into the AI that talks to me, right?
Prompting
Because
that you
I'm
believe it,
gonna
maybe
because
unknowingly.
because the AI knows I'm a Christian. The AI is gonna, ask it a lot of Bible questions, so it's gonna know. So I'm like, okay, you're just saying that because I'm me. So I asked it how, and one of the things it gave me shocked the shit out of me. I was like, what? And I went down a rabbit hole with this one. It gave me a couple, but the one that really shocked me is it said because of the resurrection of Jesus and the validity of the claim being true. And I'm like, what? I mean, obviously I'm a Christian, so I believe it's true, but you're making it sound like it's a scientific fact. So I asked it, I'm like, what do you mean the resurrection's true? And the AI listed out all of the reasons why the resurrection was true. And I was like, what? And so then I started looking into it, and it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And the AI made a connection that most people don't, which is this. It says that Jesus made the claim that he was God. And he made the claim that the proof of him being God will be that he'll die and rise from the dead. So therefore, if he rose from the dead, he is therefore God. And I'm like, that is logically sound.
Well, you know
So
who
then we have to talk about whether or not he rose from the dead, and it was crazy. It's awesome. It's a
do you
really
know who Lennox is? I think it's John
Linux,
Lennox.
John Linux. The name sounds
He's like a
familiar.
big fat dude, British dude, been talking about Christianity forever.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, if you saw a picture of him, you probably know him. But his claim, I heard him talking to somebody, I think it was maybe Alex O'Connor recently, or maybe even within the past year or two. I can't remember exactly when it was dated. But he said essentially that without the resurrection, we would not know who Jesus is today.
Yeah, that's probably true.
And it seems the track because it's like all of the other people of the day seemed there was people that did miracles, there's people that did this, that, and the other, and it's like we don't know who the fuck their names are though. And then his claim was that like without that one story, we probably don't know who Jesus is today.
Yeah, and so I actually asked the because this was ChatGPT. I asked ChatGPT to summarize it, and I fed it into Grok. Now Grok,
Mm,
I hadn't talked too much at this point, so I was like, this will be more unbiased. And
mm-hmm.
so I fed the summary and I said, what do you think? And it said, yes, the assertion that ChatGPT is making is logically coherent and is accurate as far as the bullet points that they're making. But it does have a distinction, which I'll clarify the distinction because I think it's important and it will actually circle right back into the whole idea of theory, but in a different way, right? So the case for the resurrection is as it's a theory at this point. And what I mean by that is if you test it against all the things to break the resurrection, they fall apart. Nothing has broken the resurrection. So the resurrection is a theory, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. It just means that put against all the evidence based against it, it holds up.
Falsifiable.
So it's not false. It hasn't been proven false by any known method that people who actively want it to be false have tried to bring against it. And so this circles right back to what we talked about in the beginning, but and it's slightly different because obviously history is a little different in scientific equations and the movement of stars and things like that. So
Secondhand accounts.
so and then we have to bring in. You're familiar with Occam Razor.
That's not the malice one.
So Occam Razor says that
The most simple explanation is probably the most likely one.
yeah, essentially. Well, so there's a nuance. So that's the layman way of saying it, but the nuance is really important. The nuance says all the information that fits all of the facts. The simplest explanation is probably the right one, but it has to fit all the facts. So then here's what you do. You compile what are the facts of the resurrection and then try to break it. And nobody's been able to break it. No secular historian has been able to break it to the point where they
See,
just
this is
have to
so
say,
crazy.
they just have to go, I don't believe it.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's the answer. So here it is. This is a really quick nutshell. So the tomb is empty. Point blank, the tomb is empty. Now we know the tomb is empty not because of the Gospels, but actually because of an enemy of Christians. There's a Jewish writer who says that the tomb is empty. And he gives an explanation for why he thinks the tomb is empty. But that part is not as relevant as here's an enemy, during the time period that says the tomb is empty. It's not a Christian source saying it. It's a non-Christian source saying that they're verifying that the
It's
tomb
the
is
people who would typically be against the story kind of
right.
thing.
So the tomb is empty. Okay, so now we have to go. Why is the tomb empty? Did they misplace the body? Well, that doesn't seem likely. If that was the case, the enemies would easily be like, "It's over there. You guys are looking over here. It's fucking over there. You fucking idiots."
Yeah, if it was just a body, yeah.
Yeah, if it was just as cases, well, y'all say the tomb is there, but really we put the tomb over there. Come on, guys. It's
Mhm.
simple. They say, well, they stole the body. And that's actually what this guy claimed. They said the disciples stole the body, but there's a couple of reasons why that doesn't work. So one is there was a Roman guard. I don't know about you, but a bunch of fishermen aren't going to overpower Roman guards. It's just
Well,
not
I've
going to
heard
happen.
people say about the high stakes nature of that job, like they would have been killed if they had
Yeah.
failed,
So there would have been an execution, and yeah,
especially for a high profile situation, right?
yeah. So there was no execution. Well, there might have been executions, but they weren't recorded anywhere.
Right.
But so, and it also doesn't make sense that timid men would steal the body. We had disciples who themselves say that they were scared. They were in hiding. They go from hiding one moment to evangelizing the entire city in which Jesus was killed in. So if you were going to spread a new sect of a religion that the founding religion, in this case Judaism, was opposed to, you can't spread it in the seat of power. You have to go outside of the seat of power to
Heard the
spread it
same
because they're
argument
right there and
recently.
they're going to kill you too.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it spreads
The
in the
fact that
very
it did grow
city
there.
that he died in. When the religious leaders and the Roman leaders, I honestly, both the government and the religious leader have incentives to say this is not true, and they don't put out anything to disprove it. You have these men who are on fire suddenly after hiding. This is actually a cool point too. Women found the body. The disciples said that women found the body first, or sorry, the empty tomb first. And if you're gonna make up a story in the ancient world, you don't have women
You don't
find
lead
the
with
empty.
women.
You don't lead with the women, and the fact that the women are the ones who lead it. The claim is, if they were going to make it up,
Would that be heresy or something? Is that what the word would
it would
be?
just be,
Or
it'd just be weird. It'd be
untrusting of the situation?
like think of American slavery era, and they're making up a religion, right? They're going to make it up. They're not going to have the black slaves find it first, you know? They're like, "Oh, no, this is
The
no,
least credible. Least
yeah, the
credible.
white people found it. We found it, of course,
Right,
not
right,
not
right,
them."
right.
So so you have basically the lowest class citizen finding it.
Mm,
If they were going to
mm.
make it up, Peter would have been the one to find it. Here are the big ones for me. This is the most convincing ones for me. Paul is an enemy of the church. He actively persecutes Christians. And he says that when he killed Christians, he thought he was doing a service to God. He thought he was doing the right thing. He goes from killing Christians to being one of their loudest spokesmen.
Yeah.
And that's not explainable unless something happened to him. Or he's absolutely crazy.
Well, clearly something did, but maybe he is crazy if he was already killing
It
people.
it could. Well, killing people back then was just, this is what you did,
It's
This is,
Tuesday. What do you mean?
James is a church father. He wrote the book of James. He is Jesus' brother. And actually, I don't know if the guy who wrote James, I don't know if that's the same James as Jesus, but anyway. So Jesus had a brother named James who rejects him in the Gospels. He goes to them and he gets rejected. After the resurrection, James is a defender of Christ as the Messiah and God. And I don't know if you got brothers, but I'm not calling my brother God. I don't care. He'd have to be God for me to call him God. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen. And so we have a guy who rejects him and then says, "Nope, I'm wrong. He's God." So those are. I think I'm missing like four other cases.
Hmm.
But so then what the AI concluded was the only thing that fits literally all of the explanations for all of this is that Jesus must have risen from the dead. And I'm like,
Hmm.
I don't know what to do about this because this is a theory now. So
Well,
as
people.
the AI said, it would actually take more evidence. You would have to introduce more evidence that we currently have to support Jesus not rising from the dead,
falsifiable.
yeah, you actually would have to you'd have to introduce things to falsify it at this point. Not You can't falsify it with the information we have.
Hmm.
And I'm like,
Mm.
damn.
Well, I don't think people are stupid either. I think they understand story, and I think they understand like human comprehension. So, well,
And the disciples were willing to die for it. That's
yeah,
another
that's the
big
big one that
one.
everybody pushes. There's
Yeah,
but me and my buddy talk about it on here, but I kind of came to the point like I think people because he says nobody would die for a lie, right? And I've kind of come back and said like, well, people would die for what they believe to be true, even if it was a lie.
that's true. But regarding the disciples, if they were lying, they would have to know it. It wouldn't be a case of
Well,
like
if
we
they believed it, would they still think it's a lie though?
yeah, you can believe a lie.
Well, would you be willing to die for something you thought was like you would die for a belief, even if you thought it was a lie, more so than you would just die for a lie, right?
Well, so if we go back to earlier when we were talking about truth and lies, right? So if I'm willing to die, like if I go outside to count out how many people there are, and I come in and I think there's five. I'm not trying to deceive you. I literally
That's what I
think
mean. That's what I
what?
mean.
So I think there's five people, and you're like under pain of death. If I go out there and there's more than five, I'm going to kill you. Yay or nay? I'm going to say yes. There's five people. You go outside, you check. You're like, motherfucker, there's six. I'm going to kill you now. I'm willing to die for what I thought was true. The
Right.
difference would be for the disciples, you have to say this. This would have to be the claim. They go outside, they know there's seven people. They come inside and you go, is there five people? And they go, yes, even though they know there's more. And you're like, under pain of death? And you're like, yes. And that is crazy. Nobody would do that. And maybe you get one guy to do that, but you're going to get 11 people to do that? Nah, it's no way. To willingly die for something they absolutely know to be fabrication is insane.
Can this fall into Pascal's wager?
What is that?
It's basically to say the benefit of being right outweighs the downside of being wrong.
I think
Like
some I
if this is a God situation, maybe I should just say it is because if it isn't and it comes out like, damn, I'm fucked up with God right now. But if it is and I die, then I'm dead either way. But it's like at least I have an opportunity.
I think that's what a lot of people will bank on or they'll try to say.
Yeah.
I think that's a deceptive in this case, and I don't think it's relevant.
Hmm.
I didn't come to Jesus because of the resurrection, but now that I've come to Jesus and I've heard the outline of this resurrection, I'm like, I mean, as far as I can tell, I mean, I'm willing for somebody to tell me that it's not true, but every time I present this, they just tell me, oh, it's an extraordinary claim. And I'm like, who cares? So is the fact that the earth revolves around the sun.
You're
That's an
asking for
extraordinary.
somebody that deep in that hole too.
Do you know how extraordinary the claim is that the earth revolves around the sun? Does it look like that? It looks like the sun revolves around. This is why
Yeah.
people thought this. It's
Well, that's why people
radically
died when they
crazy.
said it.
Yeah, it's radically crazy to think that no, the earth is actually the thing moving and not the sun, because it doesn't appear like that at all from a human perspective, from without instrumentation. So that's a radical claim, but it's also true. The radicalness of it doesn't factor in. That just becomes a
Information
genetic
from
fallacy.
source.
Yeah, so you have to check the source.
Well, splitting the two, right, is kind of because you're kind of banking on the source though in this situation. Huh?
So I would say
This
the
is so hard though with something so long ago because like I have friends of mine who don't even believe like secondhand information.
sure.
That's not me, but
Well,
like
I mean, look at
unless
today's
you were
world. Look at
there,
the
unless you
media.
saw it, unless you lived it, they're like, I don't fucking believe you.
Sure.
It's a little
That
bit
bec-
heavy, but yeah,
that
there are these
well,
people out there.
I mean, it becomes relevant in today's world, right? I mean, who knows?
How
It's
do you
at a,
know? How do you know?
well, so it's actually at a point where like there are videos that people think are real, but they're not real. You know,
Deep fakes are
deep
huh?
fakes are, you could have the president say anything, and you could just release that, and it's protected by law. I think it should still be protected by law. there are
Yeah.
other ways to verify whether or not the president said that or not. So I don't think that
Mhm.
the fact that somebody could put a video out there should matter. But so yeah, we have that even in today's world, whether or not the information is true. So yeah, going back 2,000 years is really hard to try to piece together and go, but like, what do I do with this somewhat information? And
That's it.
I think the answer is a lot more simple than what we make it out to be. We try to come about it from a knowledge point. We try to make the information make sense, and then after it makes sense, then I'll believe in it. And that's a weird thing because people operate on things that they don't know all the time. We talked about
Mm.
gravity earlier. We talked
Yeah,
about if I
you take things for granted, but it's kind of the point of having a brain. That's what your brain does. It simplifies the worlds for you so you don't have to redo it every time, you know?
when I dropped the pencil, fell to the ground. You and I both predicted it would fall to the ground. We made this prediction based off past experience.
Inferences, yeah.
We were correct. I dropped it, it fell to the ground. Why did it fall to the ground?
Gravity.
Okay, now explain gravity to me.
Shit falls.
Scientifically. Scientifically explain gravity?
Shit falls.
That's it, yeah. I ask people all the time, when I ask them when I tell them, you predict things based on things you don't understand, that you don't know. And they're like,
All the
why? I'm like,
time. All the
gravity.
time.
You don't know anything about gravity. Nobody I know knows anything about gravity, right? We know a couple of scientific facts, but if you talk to somebody who studied gravity, they would tell you you don't know shit. And everything you just told me is somewhat true, but it's stupid. And you're like, oh, I mean,
Right, right,
a
right.
simple no would have sufficed. Yeah, I'd say it like that. But like, you and I don't know anything about gravity, and we rely on it. We depend on gravity. We operate so much on gravity, and we don't even understand how it works.
Could be the same for like sunlight, you know? We depend on sunlight so much more than we realize we do.
I think we actually know more about sunlight than gravity. I'm pretty
That we
sure they
de-
don't know how gravity.
I'm saying that we depend on it so much more than we realize we do, right? It's one of those things that
For
kind of gets out
sure.
of our scope of like, well, we just take it for granted, I guess, in a way,
I
right?
mean, just basic seeing things is based off sunlight and light itself. So it's like
Couple of rods and cones.
just being able to see. And so I don't think that it's relevant to I don't think you need to understand all the ins and out of what's going on 2000 years ago to have the gospel. I think for me it became this simple. If God's real, he can show up. That's it. I tell Christians this. If you pray and God doesn't answer, stop being a believer in Christ. Stop believing it. Because if he doesn't answer, it's not real. I prayed, he answered me. And so that's why I believe in it. That's the only reason I believe in it. The whole resurrection stuff is awesome. They're great talking points. It's really cool. It'll help explain historic theories versus scientific theories
Hmm.
and they're both moving goalposts but in different directions.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah.
not the reason I believe in the scriptures. It's not the reason I believe in Jesus. I believe in Jesus because when I call out to him, he answers me. And that's something I don't know how to fake. And if I could stop believing in this, I would, because it certainly changes how I live life in a lot of ways. So in a way, it would free me up to do things I'd want to do differently. I see it as a Paul likens it as a more excellent way. Show me your way, and I'll show you a still more excellent way. And that's kind of like my claim on Christ. If if you want to, he'll answer you. And if you want to know how to get him to answer you, talk to somebody who says they hear from Jesus. A lot of people will say, I made this claim. I pray, nothing happened. No prayers answered, no talking back, none of that. And the guy I talked to said, sure, you've prayed. Do you know how to pray? I was like, I mean, what the fuck you mean, man? You just close your eyes and just talk to Jesus, right? He's like, no, fool. Maybe that's why you don't get an answer. And I was like, there's more to it? He's like,
So
yeah.
how do you know?
Yeah. And that's kind of, it's like, well, what do you mean? What do you mean? He's like, listen, if you are a guy and you say, I've prayed and nothing happened, I go, okay. But I'm a guy who says, I've prayed and something happens. Maybe listen to what I have to say and then, do it yourself. And if you hear from him, great. And if you don't hear from him, walk the fuck away because it's made up. And I was like, Yeah, all right, that seems sensible. Yeah, I'll do
Seems
that.
like it might come and go, really. Like sometimes it might be a thing, sometimes it might not be a thing. I don't know.
It is, but it's based on you more than you think it is. You think
Right.
people think it's based on him. It's really based on you and your posture towards him.
Hmm.
I like the way he put it. You ever seen The Wizard of Oz? Of course. All right. So the way we do this to each other, and people know this, right? This is like one of those things we all know, but we don't talk about, and we don't know how we know, right? But every person puts a mask on to talk to other people. What
A
I'm
little bit.
presenting to you is not me, right? I'm presenting a guy who kind of knows what he's talking about
I
and
thought I
knows some
put a like
science.
something.
If you remember that other guy that was in the chat with us, Joe Ray, if you got him on here and you asked him, hey, does Pat knows what he's talking about? He'd be like, fuck no. Fuck no, he don't. No shit. He'll tell you.
Yeah.
He's like, he knows a couple of things, but not really. But like, I don't present that to people. I present a guy who knows what he's talking about, a guy who's researched and who's done some stuff. And like, if you dig into it, you're like, yeah, you're kind of full of shit. Most topics, you're kind of a generalist that thinks he's a specialist. That's actually what Joe Ray said to me one time. He said, you'll read 10% of an article, you think you read 90% of it, and that's your biggest problem. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I think that's true, actually, right?
Yeah,
So,
I do that with a lot of stuff, yeah.
so every person
I
presents a
try not to
mask,
be pretending that I know more, but I
right?
do skim shit.
We know it's almost a bias built into us, and sometimes we try to fight against it, right? Sometimes we try to be like, let me put out who I really am, but we never do. Not to the public, maybe to our spouse, maybe to our inner closest friends. We'll let that mask down and we'll show who we are to each other, but most of the time not really. And if we do, it's to a very small degree, right? So we put this mask on. And then here's where we have a problem with Yahweh, who's God. We take that same mask and we present it to Yahweh and we say, will you talk to me? And he says, fuck no. Get that shit out of my face. We present the Wizard of Oz to him. We make that big booming voice and we go, God, you see how awesome I am? You see how righteous I am? Will you now talk to me? And he says, no, get that shit out of my
I don't
face.
recognize you.
He says, if you will get that fake mask thing out of my face and you'll come behind the curtain, that little worm of a man that's booming into the voice, he's talking into it and doing all these gizmos to make this projection. If that little piece of shit guy will come out and talk to me, I'll talk to him. But this thing that you're trying to put in front of me, I'm not talking to that shit. That shit's fake as fuck. I'm not doing that.
Image.
And
Image.
that's image is a good language, especially talking about biblical theology. We project the image that we think we are to God, and we ask Him to talk to us, and He says, "No, I'm not
I get
talking to
tripped
that."
up on that word, man. I could talk about that word for hours. That's a whole thing in of itself right there, image.
And so, one of the things someone said to me is, he's like, "You should talk to God, the person you are at 3 o'clock in the morning when you're alone." And it's just you, and you're aware of all the flaws and deficiencies that you have, that guy, that's the guy who should talk to Yahweh. Not the guy that's like, hey man, I know some things. I'm cool. I got some things figured out. He's like, because you don't have shit figured out. Compared to him, you don't know nothing. It's like my 4-year-old. My 4-year-old thinks he's so smart. I see my arrogance in him, and I'm just appalled by it. Because I'm appalled because one, he's 4. I'm also appalled because I know he gets it from me, but he'll do something. Yeah, he'll do something. Like, this is what he'll do. Man, he'll do this. This is how dumb my little kid is. He'll go, he'll have a cup and he'll have something else and he'll go, like he's hot shit because he put a pencil in a cup. And I'm like, bitch, I can do that with my eyes closed. Like, you didn't do
Yeah,
anything.
but look at
But
that shit.
he's like, he'll have his shirt off and he'll stand in front of the mirror like,
What I say, ignorance and confidence, right?
and I'm like, bro, you ain't shit. You weak as fuck. And that's the mentality we present to God. Like, talk to me, bitch. And he's like, no. Why?
It's probably a recognition thing in that way, right? Like I don't recognize you.
Well, it seems that Yahweh is about order and proper ordering. And so if you try to put yourself on his level, there's no reason for him to talk. I mean, like if think of a 4-year-old trying to talk to you and try to,
Educate you?
yeah, try to be like, let me reason out with you. And you're like, bitch. you
Let me show you
shit
why this is this way.
like, bro, you shit your pants. What are you doing to me right now? But I will say that's one of the craziest things about Yahweh. You know, I ask Christians this a lot. I'll ask them, "Why do you love God?" And people give me some interesting answers. One person gave me one of the coolest, honest answers. She's like, I don't think that I do. I think I just follow him. I'm like, that's a problem. We should work on that. Uh, so why do you love God? I'm like, oh, there's this line in Isaiah where Yahweh, who's supposed to be the judge of everything, who created literally everything by speaking it into existence, he says to the earthlings, to humans, come to me and make an argument against me for why I sinned. In other words, what he's saying is, you come tell me, bring a charge against me, and let's argue it out. Let you tell me how I wronged you, and I'll explain to you how I didn't wrong you. And I'm like, for our God to say, you come tell me that I'm wrong is like, what?
Supreme humility.
Dude, if I was God, I'd be like, say something, bitch. Say it again. And he's like, no, yeah. And he's like, no, come tell me, come make an argument before me why I'm wrong. I'll listen. Tell me. And I'm like, dude, that's crazy. Not like you. I would not say that. I would tell someone to fuck off at a
I
heartbeat.
tell you, the way you dig into this, I see it more and more. It's like I know we've been going for a minute, but it's just I can't see it from the way most people describe it, any difference between intuition and God. Because your
All right.
intuition, you kind of have this back and forth with too, occasionally.
Well, here's the question I would ask. Have you ever hated your intuition? Have you ever had like an intuition thought and you're like, cool. Or have you been like, no, I don't like, I fucking, have you ever groaned at your intuition? Because I've groaned at what Yahweh has said to me
No, I don't
in
think so.
disgust. So there's one difference. I'll give you an example. I don't,
Because I just accept it. It's just like,
yeah,
even if it's not what I'm currently thinking, I just, okay, that's
okay.
whatever.
I'll give you an example. In the 2020 election, I don't vote. I don't, I don't think it makes a difference. I've got all sorts of different reasons why I don't vote. And anyway, so I don't vote. And, are like right on the cusp of the 2020 election. I mean, it's probably like, they take place in November, so it's probably like October. And I'm complaining. I'm talking to the guy discipling me, and I'm like, bro, abortion is just so fucked up, man. I can't wrap my head around how evil it is, and I don't know what to do about it. He's like, pray about it. And I'm like, yeah, all right. I mean, that's the Christian answer, but like, what's God, what's he going to do? Just stop him? Like, he's not. So fine. Okay. So I'm crying out. I'm on a walk, and I'm like, Yahweh, I don't like it. I think it's evil. I don't know how to I don't want people to be forced to change their ways. I want people to reason it out and change their ways and choose the better thing and not the worst thing. I don't know what to do. There's literally I have zero power, I have zero authority, zero anything. There's literally nothing I can do. What's the point? And this is what God said to me, and I groaned at this the moment he said it. He says, you can vote. And I went, what? He's like, you can bitch to me or you can vote. You're complaining to me that you can't do anything, but at the very least, you live in a system that lets you at least vote. At least you could pretend that you're doing something. So if you're not going to do the lowest thing, which costs you a little bit of time, don't come to me with your complaint of you're not able to do anything when you literally have something that most of the people in the world can't do. So either vote or shut the fuck up. I was like, yeah, all right.
Damn,
That's not
dude.
intuition. I've never had intuition where I
It sounds
groaned
like
against it.
reasoning with self, really.
Yeah, but again, have you groaned against yourself?
Like, yeah, I know the right it's like knowing the right thing to do is usually the hard thing to do, and then you come to terms with it in your own head eventually. You're like, God damn it, I know what I gotta do. It's just fuck.
So yeah, I guess it just depends on.
Because it's like you can't fool yourself on some level, right?
Well, I guess it depends on then where do you draw agency?
Free
Because
will. Because there's
so
always
for
free
me,
will.
like
Knowing what the right thing to do and doing it are two different things.
well, I would say to the example I'm giving,
I hear you on that dialogue though. I'm right there with it.
If
I'm
if
playing in that space a lot.
if if for me voting was the thing, I don't think I would have groaned about it. I would have been like, "That's cute," and I would have ignored it. Uh,
Well, there's an intellect, and then there's like we've talked about maybe in the chat you were there, but there's things that you know precognitively too.
I don't think so
Well, they
because
say that there's like I can't remember like 10,000 neurons in your heart.
I mean, I don't know.
Now they say there's a bunch of neurons in your heart to maybe suggest that it's thinking on its own in some way.
Well,
And
even
then
if it is,
you could dabble into what they call subconscious, right? That's also a
sure.
part.
So that's part of when you glance at a room, you're cognitive of everything in the room.
Right,
Whether
right.
you can bring that to the forefront of your thought process is another thing. I'm fine with that. I think that's a good word. That's a good phrasing for intuition. But I think the where it would break down is for me when I reason something out on my own, just using my own logic. Sometimes I'm like for an example, if I was like, oh well, I could vote. Yeah, I mean, I could do that. The way my logical brain would have worked was yes. So voting is like a thing I can do, but it actually doesn't do anything. So therefore, there's no reason to vote. That would have been how that played out.
I think it's trying to out intellect your intellect.
But, and here's where I think it's really important for Yahweh to enter into the piece. I don't think Yahweh told me to vote because he thought, oh, you know what? If Pat goes vote, it'll solve the problem. I don't think he thought that way. I think one of the things that Yahweh can't stand, and we see this in the Old Testament, and we kind of see this a little bit in the New Testament, but it's really, really apparent in the Old Testament, is he can't stand when people grumble. People grumble about things all the time. And for him, here I am grumbling about this thing. And he's like, bro, you think this issue is so important to you? We do this a lot too, right? We'll make issues that we hear about today really, really important. And then we forget about it tomorrow. Like we don't even think about it, right? You just take any political news source in the last three months and see if people are still talking about it today. They're probably not.
All right.
We blow up. It's like consumes us, and we're like, ooh, this thing, and then we just dump it the next day. And you're always like, that's what you're doing with this. And if you care, show me that you care by doing the smallest fucking step. And if you won't do that, then don't bring it before me. And I'm like, that's
That's the old
fair.
Jordan
That's
Peterson thing. You know about Jordan Peterson?
yes. I that's a
It's like what is the smallest action that you're willing to take in that direction, whatever that thing may be, right?
yeah. And I think Yahweh is like, rather than grumbling, I think that's what I'd rather you do. And then you can come talk to me about it. Because at least I know you're serious. Again, I'm presenting this image before Yahweh, like, I really care about this thing. This is really important. He's like, bitch, you will forget about this tomorrow.
I would bet that we already know the answer. We just try to either weasel out of it or intellect our way out of it or just like reason out of it, but we already know deep down, you know?
So where I would say that I could show you that I don't think that is, I did vote that election. I haven't voted since. And I think partly because I got the message he was giving me. I got what he was trying to tell me.
You wrestled
And
with yourself over it.
well, I recognize that like I'm the guy who will bitch about something for a day and then I don't care about it tomorrow. It's not important to me, you know? And that had a profound effect on me after the fact because, and then like right after that, I think I read Jordan Peterson and I read about that thing and I was like, wow, this is me. Like this shit is me. I bitch about all these things that I think are really important, but I don't act on them. And like my brother and I, like my brother, oh my gosh, my
Well,
brother
it's
is,
like saying it and meaning it.
so my brother's 10 years younger than me. And he comes to my house one day and we're debating some politics and he told me I think this. I'm not gonna tell you what it is because I don't want him watch this and get all
I
mad.
get you good.
But he's like, I'm really upset about this. I'm like, no, you're not. And the look, he's like, what do you mean I'm not? I really am. I'm like, you don't do a goddamn thing about this thing except talk about it. He's like, well, there's nothing I can do. I'm like, that's bullshit. And every person who does something about it knows that what you just said is bullshit. You
Mm,
refuse to do something because doing something is actually really hard to do. Bitching about something is super easy and it also accomplishes very little. And like,
'cause you're grumbling.
yeah, so today's a good one. People are going back and forth on Snap benefits. And people are like, it doesn't matter. For me, I'm like, it doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on. If you know somebody hungry, feed them. And if you don't, shut the fuck up. Like, if you're mad
What's
about
the
Snap,
shit or get off the pot?
yeah, if you're mad about Snap in either direction, but you also won't go out of your way to help someone who's hungry, shut up. Like, nobody needs to hear what you have to say because you're disingenuous at heart. You're just grumbling about a thing that you think is unfair. And it may be unfair. Like, you might be right. I might be right about all sorts of things that I grumble about, but it doesn't make any difference if I'm not doing
Talk is
anything.
cheap.
Just shut up. Like, just, you know?
I like that one, the shit or get off the pot. That's kinda where that falls.
Yeah. And the opposite is rich people should shut the fuck.
I
I don't know if you read Ready Player One, but there's a great line in it. It said the people
know
who
the
live in
movie, not the book.
the book's amazing. There's a line in the book that said the people who live in glass houses should shut the fuck up.
That's kind of what Jesus said, isn't it? Like, "Don't throw stones, man." That's funny. Well, it was good meeting you, somewhat
Yeah, man.
formally. Probably hop off of
Yeah.
here. We covered a
Sounds-
lot of damn ground tonight, I think.
yeah, you got some material.
This would be good to yeah, dude, this you could use this too once to chop it up, but,
Sure.
I'll let you know when it goes live and all, and, we'll get out of here.
All right.
It's good meeting you, man.
Yeah, man.
It's the language expert himself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Self-proclaimed.
Self-proclaimed. I like it. I like it. Alright, well, we'll get out of here. I'll see you.